Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Conrad, I'm good. Enjoying this holiday season. Hope everybody has a great Christmas. As we record this, it's not quite Christmas yet, but we're getting close. So enjoy Christmas, enjoy your families as best you can. Listen to the CDC. Don't go crazy on your get-togethers. And don't make this a civil liberties issue with JR today either. I'm going to have whatever I want because I'm a defiant son of a bitch. That's what I am. God damn it. I'm a defiant. So enjoy Christmas. Don't overthink it. I got to figure out. I'm thinking I may go. I don't know if I'm going to go Italian this year or Chinese, but I'm going to do something that takes very little effort on my part that I can get in here on the Christmas Eve and then kind of munch on it all day. Got to figure that out. You know, Chinese food kind of sounds good. I'd like to have Italian in honor of my little former bride. God bless her in heaven. So I don't know. I got to figure it out. Are you going to do the traditional turkey dressing?
I am. Yes, sir. I'm going to be very traditional. And man, Joni Laurer. Am I saying that right? Laurer. Joan Marie Laurer, better known as Chyna, born on December 27th, 1969, Rochester, New York. Tragedy is a big part of her life, JR. And if you know her story or you've read her book, you probably already know that. When was the first time you met Joni?
I think Triple H brought her to meet Vince. Might have been in Boston. Can't remember that far back, but I know the scenario was that she was a talent that was kind of from that New Hampshire area at that time, and she was socially involved with Triple H. She's trying to get in the wrestling business. Very unique look, and I think Triple H gave Vince the idea to use her. And of course, Vince, being a smart booker, was trying to acquiesce to his top talents. And Hunter was not yet a quote unquote top guy, but he was heading that way. It was inevitable. So I think maybe at an event, and before she had her jaw realignment surgery, and even after, quite frankly, but before, she was had a very distinctively different look. In addition to being all jacked up and muscular and so forth, strong. So I think that was the first time. And she was intriguing. I mean, she was one of those kind of talents that the first time you lay eyes on her, you knew that this is a very unique talent and there's nobody quite like her that I've seen. And there wasn't before or after, quite frankly. But nonetheless, I think that was it. And good scouting by Triple H. Plus, he got his girlfriend on the road with him. Not bad. So it all worked out.
Yeah, it did work out. Let's start at the beginning.
This is going to be a fairly troubling story. After Chyna's parents divorced when she's, I guess, 4 years old, she had three different stepfathers, one stepmother, and according to her, her stepfather, her first stepfather rather, threatened suicide at one point. Her biological father, who once accidentally stabbed her mother in the thigh, had a problem with alcoholism. And she wrote in her book that there were times he would be so drunk that he would bring a woman home, forgetting he was already married.
Oh,
And
God,
between
that's no
seven,
excuse. I forgot, honey. I didn't remember. God damn. Hey, that's getting in the bottle, brother. I'm telling you.
from 73 to 83, her siblings and her mother moved several times. She basically grew up home to home and never really had a true father figure in her life. And she wrote in her book that she wasn't like normal kids. She was big, she was different, and she learned how to play the violin and the cello. I don't think I would have ever pegged her as being musically inclined. Did you know she could play these instruments?
Well, I found out as we went along. Yeah, she was very talented. Joni had a lot of skills. Unfortunately, the skill of maintaining self-esteem was not one of them.
Unfortunately, seventh grade is when she starts to have some trouble at school. She's kissed by a teacher who worked at the school. And around this same time, she starts purging after she ate. We're off to a rough start here for a childhood, Jim. How much of this did you come to know before the book was published?
Well, a lot of it because she was willing to talk about it more often than not. But you never knew how deep she was digging into her treasure chest of emotions. But you knew that she had a lot of issues. I don't know this to be factual, but just based on the conversations that she and I had, and there were many, many, I think she could have been a suspect for abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. Like she said, she was bigger than her peers. She wasn't a dainty little, sweet little, little girly girl. And I think she missed that. I think she got some of that back when she had her surgery, but I just believe that her childhood was so troubling, and that led to her trusting very few people and always having the great self-doubt that she wasn't even either not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not whatever enough. So she had a lot of issues that she had to travel with every day and live with her entire life.
There's more trouble to come. Eventually her friends start smoking marijuana. Some of her mother's friends find out. They tell her mom, and now her mom thinks she needs to go to rehab for smoking marijuana. So she moves out of her mother's house, goes to live with friends, eventually winds up with her biological father. She starts working out and focusing all of her, I guess, nervous energy and anxiety on physical development. Eventually she becomes so strong, at least in her abdominal muscles, she would write that she didn't know that she had an ovarian tumor. And eventually she has surgery to fix that, but says it was a very difficult surgery. And she actually finished her last year of high school in Spain. And she wrote in her book, as a graduation gift, her father took out a $40,000 student loan in her name. So now she's saddled with debt. She wrote, imagine your worst childhood experiences. Some of you, I'm sure, can top me, no sweat. Everybody has a sad tale. For me, it's not how bad or how awful those experiences were that makes it hard to talk about them. It's the very idea of those experiences receiving any credit for the good fortune I have at the moment. It's the acknowledgement that hurts. So be it. That's one of the good things about wrestling. You learn how to take a hard fall. This is a pretty rough upbringing here, man. And I don't want to say that this is going to define her life, because she's going to achieve a lot of great success, but it starts pretty sad and it ends pretty sad as well, Jim.
Yeah, it does. She accomplished a lot of things. Obviously, we'll talk about those, and they were significant. She was a big part of the Attitude Era, without a doubt. She made a lot of money. I'm not sure of this, but I would be willing to bet a case of barbecue sauce on this statement. She was probably the first woman wrestler to make 7 figures. In other words, make $1 million or more.
Right.
And I know that to be fact because I was in charge of doing that, the payroll. So she got paid real well for being booked with Triple H, who was getting paid real well for being a main event guy, and still evolving his game. She did accomplish so much, but she never accomplished finding true happiness. And that's the sad part of this whole story.
Let's keep the story going for Chyna. She attends the University of Tampa, graduates in 92 with a major in Spanish literature. During college, she's also going to study French and German, so she could converse in 3 or 4 different languages here. But it's while she's in college that she has yet another really, really tough circumstance. She winds up revealing in her book that she was actually raped by 2 men at a drunken college party. This is just an unbelievable amount of stuff to overcome here, Jim. And she's still going to become one of the biggest stars in this genre. And as you said, be the first female to eclipse 7 figures. With a start like this, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that, you know, the hits just keep on coming and this bad luck just seems to follow them around like a cloud. But Chyna, she broke through all that, man. It really is a success story.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of success in her story, but you know, we're all going to be mostly remembered for how we spent or how we've affected people in our last days. If you know when your last days are coming, many don't. But in today's world, being diagnosed with all these issues, dealing with rape, dealing with abuse, dealing with 3 stepfathers are really, it's like saying I got 3 three quarterbacks in my team. What you're saying really is you have none. She had 3 fathers, but she really had none. At least that's how she viewed it.
Right.
A lot of the times. So, but if this would happen in today's world, there's all kinds of, and luckily, and I say this in a good way, that there's all kinds of ways to get treatment, to get help, to talk through these things, to evaluate where you are, because she never could close that circle on complete self-esteem. She never, again, I say it again, and I'll say it again before we go off the air. She never thought she was good enough or pretty enough or, you know, her body or whatever. And then, you know, the thing on her, the jaw thing, get her jaw realigned was huge for her. I mean, it was very, very important for this to happen. And quite frankly, it did upgrade her look immensely. Look at before and after shots. And she got, as a heel, before the surgery, she got ridiculed. Some real cold things fans were saying and doing, throwing, you know, little all these insults that were heartfelt. They weren't in the role of being a heel wrestler or a villain cast in this fictional deal. People were getting real personal with it. And I think because she was a sensitive person, she took all that shit to heart, unfortunately.
While she's in school, by the way, she's going to start studying to join the FBI and Secret Service, or at least that's what she wrote in her book. She's also a member of the ROTC. I say at least that's what she wrote in her book in regards to the FBI and Secret Service, because those are 2 different agencies. You don't really study to get into those, but that was clearly her goal. She does eventually join the Peace Corps and is assigned to Guatemala. And after returning from abroad, she has several different jobs. She's a cocktail waitress in a strip club of all places. She's even a singer in a band, and she's even a 900 number chat line worker. So in her mid to late 20s, while making a living in the Florida Keys, she takes a 6-week class to train to be a flight attendant. And who knows, she could have wound up with a Jim Ross type character. You guys have had a lot of luck with flight attendants over the years, have you not?
What, 25 years worth?
On the way to her first flight, she said she's thinking about cellos of all things. And then it happens. She sees headlights coming straight to her, but it's too late. This is a horrific car accident. She's entrapped in her car. It was caused by a drunk driver who did survive. 2 people in that drunk person's car did pass away as the result of this. Joni herself winds up spending 4 days in the hospital. She's got a fractured ankle, a broken nose, a strained back, and facial lacerations. In her book, she said the accident sent her on a course that would lead her to our beloved world of wrestling. Boy, what a weird way to get here. Cocktail waitress, singer in a band, working on 900 lines. And then, you know what? I think I'm going to be a flight attendant, and a car wreck lays her up. And what do you know? We're going to wind up in the wrestling business.
Strange journeys. Everybody's got their story, and nobody's story is more compelling, good way, I guess, putting it, than Joni's. Just her life has never been replicated by anybody that I know in the wrestling business, especially when you add her gender to the situation. So she was dealt some badass hands, man. And for her to have the success that she ended up having as Chyna, Joni, it was incredible, because most people either committed suicide, got lost in drugs, but she did have some issues with that later on, which is, I thought that was one of the biggest things that surprised me about her, because she ate clean, she worked out religiously, she's really a health fanatic, and maybe fanatic's too strong a word, but really a health aficionado. And then for her to travel that road of pills and so forth later on was one of the bigger surprises. I just didn't think she would go there, because she had so much knowledge. She knew what she was doing to herself. And maybe that was the idea.
The story gets a little stranger from here. Once Chyna recovers, her sister, Kathy, helps her get a job selling pagers, which is not a very lucrative profession in 2020. Both of the women are also working as belly dancers. She's really racking up the occupations here. But she says in her book that her sister Kathy actually slapped her when she said she wanted to train to become a wrestler. I guess it's worth mentioning at some point here, her book, which has been critically picked apart, constantly paints a picture of Chyna being discouraged throughout her life. In your dealings with Chyna, do you think she had like a chip on her shoulder that maybe all of these folks in her life throughout her life, even as a child, that discouraged her, made her feel like she had something to prove?
Probably. She may have had that "I'll show you" mentality. And that was a great survival mechanism for her, quite frankly. She was strongly in her corner, her own corner, because who else around her in her inner circle, family specifically, was filling that role?
Right.
Nobody. So, but I've always been so heartbroken about her, because I just don't think she ever found happiness, and she deserved it. Highly a Renaissance woman. She was a musician. She did all these crazy jobs, and I don't know, man. I feel, looking back and talking about, I knew we were going to do this story. I just couldn't help but get back into that role and these experiences with her, and seeing how sad she was. Everything seemed to be, in her view, temporary. And we'll talk about that, because it concerned a lot of money. And she was very concerned about that, as everybody should be. I get it. I see it. We all see it. But she was she was broken, man. She was broken. And she needed to be put back together. And I think that when she had her surgery and was getting her push in WWE, and she had a good relationship at the time with Paul Levesque, that she started to heal, and the pieces started to become regalvanized and reattached. And then, of course, as we'll get to, the love of her life and her had a breakup. And I think that she never recovered from that to any large degree, quite frankly. Those that know her better than me, I'm sure we'll hear about this, Conrad. Those are closer to her, especially after the WWE years, which I was not. Full transparency. I think that I think that she had to start healing again after WWE, and she just could not get over the hump.
Let's remind everybody that she's dedicated her life to fitness early on. We even talked about that, while she's in high school, she didn't realize she had a tumor, but once she finishes high school, she starts entering fitness competitions. In 96, even, she competed in the New York City regional level of the Fitness America competition. And because of her large size compared to the other women, she usually finished in last place. But you know where that won't be the case? Pro wrestling. She begins a mission to find a famed wrestler, Killer Kowalski. He's got a famous wrestling school in Massachusetts, and one late night she calls him. And after an awkward conversation, he says, $2,000 and I'll train you. And she's on her way to his school the very next day. She wrote in her book though, she's not very complimentary of Killer. We'll say that. She wrote about him: just outside of the ring, an old man, mid-70s, wearing a gray hairpiece that's so cheap you can see the rubber curling up on the nape of his neck, is shouting into the face of this poor, reed-thin, 20-something kid with really bad skin. To drive this point home, the old man whacks the kid over the head with a phone book. Walter Kowalski demonstrating his people skills. Of course, not long after the book came out, Kowalski called her a liar and said, she's the biggest liar I've ever come across. A lot to unpack here. I don't hear a ton of people saying a lot of negative stuff about Killer Kowalski. I wonder.
And you won't.
Okay.
You won't hear it. It's not there. Walter is one of the most respected guys in all wrestling. I mean, he was a national star in that era where becoming a national star made you a made man. I think, look, Walter is an older guy, Conrad, as she pointed out, in his 70s. And I'm not sure how old he was at that time, but he was an older guy. Since when did Chyna have any positive relationships with older men? He had 3 stepfathers, all older than her. That was a train wreck. All 3 of them.
Right.
By her own admission. Right?
Right.
And then she gets raped by 2 guys. I'm assuming they might have been older than her. That would not be unusual based on her track record. So I think that she didn't trust older men. She really didn't trust anybody, but especially did not trust older men. And that's what Walter Killer Kowalski represented to her. But if you talk to people that have been around wrestling a long time, longer than me, that were around Killer, all in the Northeast and so forth, he was passionate. He would yell and things, but he was never violent. He was just I found him to be one of the most engaging guys. Strange, yeah. But think of his background. Think of his background. And anybody that's a lifer in pro wrestling, myself included, will have an issue or 2 here and there.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's an insecure business. It breeds insecurity, and it works on your self-esteem and so forth. And it worked on it very negatively with Joni. But when I saw, I read this book years ago. I thought, when I got to the part about Killer being so negative and not being quote unquote a good person, it kind of took me out of the moment. Like I said, well, I know this is not accurate, at least in my eyes. Maybe it is in hers. But if this is inaccurate, then what else is inaccurate? So I don't know, when Paul O'Brien and I were writing Under the Black Hat and finishing Slobberknocker, that was the key thing. Our book is going to be factually accurate. And I need to make sure that we stress what's my opinion and what isn't, what's factual or whatever. But everything's got to have a basis of truth if you're writing a book about your life. And you want your life to be either as controversial to sell books and to show that you came out on the other side whole, or making yourself look good because of the pro wrestling insecurities that exist within your being. And she had that. We all have that.
Let's keep it moving here. Chyna's first match is in 1995 against a male wrestler dressed as a woman named Raindrops. The real story is Kowalski couldn't find a woman for her to wrestle, so he had a working woman. You got to remember, in this era, there's not a ton of female wrestling talent on the independents. I should mention, while she's attending the school, she's also working various independent promotions as Joni Lee. Some of her earliest matches were set up by the Fabulous Moolah. And she wrote in her book she was supposed to meet with someone she calls Agent Orange in the WWF. She eventually tracked him down after he no-showed their scheduled meetup at a show, but it was at a hotel bar and he was falling asleep. And then Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Stone Cold walked in, all according to her book. And it's also interesting. She spells Shawn in the book, S-E-A-N, no H-A-W-N. And after chatting up Triple H about Kowalski, both sharing their alleged disdain for him, according to her book, she ended up going up to their room. And after watching tapes of her matches, they decided to bring her to the WWF as a bodyguard. Vince McMahon initially didn't want her to join the company, according to her book, because he didn't believe that the audience would find a woman beating up men to be believable. And while waiting on their decision, she's approached by WCW, according to her book, and they want her to be the sole member of the New World Order. She initially accepts the offer, but later turns it down when Shane McMahon informs her that she's about to be hired by the WWF. Kowalski would claim later that he got her hired by the WWF after introducing her to Shane McMahon and telling him of WCW's interest in her. Quote, I introduced her to Shane, the son of Vince McMahon. I tried to explain to him on my answering machine at home I had received a message from Kevin Nash of World Championship Wrestling. He said that Triple H called us to take this girl here, and we've got this girl you trained, and we want to try to hire her. She might be pretty good. I didn't do anything like that. I told Shane McMahon the whole story, and I said, WCW's interested in this girl. Why don't you guys take her? And when I talked to him the second time, he said, we will hire her. Obviously, this is all happening on your watch. What really happened? How did Chyna come into the company?
Just like that's pretty much written there. She came in through Kowalski's recommendation. Vince is going to put more credence in Kowalski's recommendation than Triple H at that time. And I understand that. I do not disagree with it. But when you get Shawn Michaels in that loop, Steve Austin in that loop, they met her, and what they all would say the same thing. You see that jacked up bitch? She was a unique. She was a novelty. She was an attraction. She was like Andre the Giant. She was abnormal size-wise and so forth. So I'm thinking that was how that went down. But I think then when Shane saw her, he had the same reaction that Triple H did and those other cats about Joni's uniqueness. Then consequently, we all discussed it. I want to think that Agent Orange was Jack Lanza.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
She told me that one time. Whether that's, again, there's a lot of embellishment in this book.
Okay.
Let's be honest about it. I'm not trying to discredit Joni, but there just are things I know to be incorrect. And I know Kowalski was so passionate about the wrestling business that he didn't put up with talents, and he was trained to be lazy or not fundamentally sound, not respecting the business, not being on time, taking care of your opponent in a safe way. That was Walter. And Walter, because he was an old school guy, the way that the loudest voice got the attention. So one way Walter would communicate would be to yell and scream. And he had that accent, so when he yelled and screamed, it was almost a comedy routine. But I've heard Triple H tell those stories, and he would even do his Killer Kowalski impersonation. Sometimes when you get Triple H on the ad-free network, Conrad, you can ask him to do his impersonation of Triple H of Killer. I'm sure that's going to happen next week So anyhow, JR said there's a chance. She just never say never. Jeez. Okay, what are we going to do? But yeah, that's kind of how that went. The process went. But I'm sure that Sean and/or Triple H called their buddy Kevin Nash to say, "Man, I don't know. We're smart enough to hire this broad." I'm just taking their parlance here. Yeah, but you guys should take a look at her. She's going to be money. Because they weren't sure because of what Vince said. See, Joni didn't want to wrestle women. She made that very clear, which I thought was bullshit.
Well, it's also worth mentioning. It's not like you guys had a big women's division here in 96 and 97.
Yeah, but the inventory is not the reason I didn't like it. It's not realistic.
Right.
And I didn't like the fact that you got a green talent coming in with no track record, no wall of honor, so to speak, with all of her accolades and success stories, dictating how she's going to be booked. We know how you want to be booked. We get it. But if it's a deal breaker, then there's no reason to do business with her. Why would we? Can't book you the way we think you ought to be booked. We got to book you the way you want to be booked.
Right.
And hopefully we'll all be on the same page, but we might not be. So that should have been cleared up early on because it became an issue.
When you first meet with her, are you meeting her at the different towns, or does she come into the office and meet with you and Vince?
It seems like she came to the office, but if we were in the Northeast doing TV, Boston, that whole Northeastern quadrant, she might have been there. But she really wanted a job. She was going to make sure that she was in front of the decision maker, Vince McMahon.
I guess I'm just curious, when you get FaceTime with the boss like this, does she bring like headshots and fitness shots? Does she bring a tape? Does she just wear like gear underneath her clothes and say, "Hey, let me show you"? I mean, what's the presentation like? Or is it just very casual, having a conversation, and we'll look at all the particulars later?
Well, you can see what you need to see.
Right.
She could be wearing coveralls would make a shit.
Right.
She was a big woman.
Right.
She had triceps. She had abs. She had a great physical development. You could see that. And her stature was certainly recognized. So I think it was more casual in that regard, Conrad, but she was just like either the eighth wonder of the world thing or the ninth wonder, whatever wonder it was. That was all based on Andre.
Right.
In her genre, she was an Andre the Giant-like character. You can see that. And, the thing we didn't know was how good could she become bell to bell doing her trip and distract and things of that nature. She wasn't interested in, that's Bobby Heenan description, by the way, of a manager. Trip, distract, and pass nuts. The brain. She wanted to wrestle, and she wanted to wrestle men. I was talking to Chris Jericho the day at here in Jacksonville about wrestling her. He had some matches with her.
Mm-hmm.
And, it went against a lot of things Chris believed in when he first got in the business of being trained in Calgary. Do you think Stu Hart would have booked a woman against a man? I don't. Cowboy? Nope. Eddie Graham? Nope. Vince Sr.? Nope. And because they want to protect the business,
right?
It isn't a spectacle in that regard. It is an athletic event. And a woman, even though she had amazing stature, great look, all that good stuff, beating a male was still, in society-wise, was hard to accept in that era. I never accepted it. I wasn't ready for it. And I'm still not a big fan of intergender matches. And I know I'll get criticized on that too. JR hates intergender matches. Click, 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 click. Drag it over here, drag it over there. Click, 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 click. He hates it. I've never seen the venom on JR on that ad-free show. God damn, he was hot. The seas were angry that day, my friends. And so I just it doesn't seem plausible. It seems real. And anytime, the more things we do in wrestling today, in any company that takes me out of the moment, that isn't plausible, is not good for the business. End of story.
Well, let's get back on track here. She winds up making her TV debut at a pay-per-view, February 97. It's Final Four in Chattanooga. The Intercontinental Champion, Rocky Maivia, pins Hunter Hearst Helmsley with a back suplex into a bridge as the challenger was distracted by Goldust at ringside. But after the bout, Marlena is assaulted and choked from behind by an unknown woman while Goldust and Helmsley had words. But man, the move that she's putting on Marlena here, really ragdolling her around. It was quite the visual. Was Marlena okay at the end of this? Cause this looked violent.
Yeah. Marlena was a trooper. You know, she, she did what she needed to do to get the business over. And I remember that spot. I remember as vividly as anything, Terry's hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she had beautiful real hair. It wasn't an extension, a tight end or whatever, however that works. Again, I'm not knocking hair extensions, for God's sakes. Some of these are going to say, fuck it, just say what you want. But her hair was going everywhere. The torque of that bear hug is reverse bear hug, I believe.
Yes.
And of course, Terry is probably 5 feet, 5'1".
Tops.
Yeah. And Joni is like 6 feet. And she always wore something to give her a little bit more height. So it was a tremendous mismatch, and we sold it like we were crazy. Who is this person? Type deal. And but she made a good impact. That's the way you make a debut. We're still talking about this.
Yeah.
It was a spot after a match with two of the ladies.
And it worked.
One was not over because she just got here. And Marlena was just getting over with her act with Goldust.
So
but people still talk about it.
I'm curious. You said she didn't want to work with women, but yet we're debuting her with her attacking a woman. Is this just
different deal, Conrad? She's not working with her.
Okay. I'm with you. I guess I'm asking.
Doing an angle.
Was this a way to go ahead?
I'm sorry.
No, I'll be quiet.
I know. I'm just saying she was merely doing an angle to help get herself over. And underscore all the positive traits that we believe she had and she believes she had. But she wasn't going in the ring and having, okay, ding, 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 here they go, a match. It was an angle. And people said, we were splitting hairs. You think that doesn't happen in wrestling every week, every show? You can split hairs. A lot of right ways to get something done. But no, she had no problem with that deal because it really underscored what she was doing. And it was good for Joni at that point in time. People were left that pay-per-view. One of the things they're going to talk about is that great big Amazon of a woman, you know, ragdolling Marlena, because it was a great visual. And we played the hell out of it. So I thought it was good for her. And I think she did too.
We don't see her on TV for a bit. She goes on the road to Europe immediately though. And she's going to be cornering Triple H in matches against Psycho Sid and Bret Hart. She makes her cable TV debut March 10th, 1997. And this is also the night that Raw is War is reintroduced. So we're switching from Monday Night Raw to Raw is War, and we've got a Titantron and we've got Chyna debuting all at the same time. Goldust gets a win with a curtain call, and after the bout, Chyna, who'd been standing at the top of the ramp, starts making her way to the ring. That allows a distraction for Goldust and Marlena. Of course, then Triple H attacks Goldust from behind, and they're going to double team him. And then eventually Marlena's going to jump on Chyna's back, and the referees separate the two women, but Chyna's throwing a referee into the others during the incident. So pretty cool debut. Is Vince warming up to the idea, you know, seeing what she can actually do? It feels like something that maybe he acquiesced for Shawn and Hunter. And then once we actually see some execution of how it performs on the screen, is he feeling better about it? Do you think?
Well, yeah, I know he is. Absolutely. She wouldn't have got those opportunities if the old man had not signed off on it and was in her corner. He still was not sold on her wrestling men.
Right.
but he started to warm up. He eventually warmed up to that as well, because she did wrestle some men, as we mentioned. I've never warmed up to that, as I said. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it just seemed to be unbelievable. But you got to think of all the ways. How many referees can you beat up? You're not going to see her wrestling a referee. Somebody getting in her way. But I don't know, Conrad. I never, and I maybe just really too set in my ways too. I'll admit that. I'm trying to be honest, but I've never been able to get over that hump. And I know that's going to piss off, Tessa Blanchard fans and other fans. And it's no disrespect to any of those women. It's just a function of I don't think men should wrestle women either.
Right.
This ain't Jim Carrey, the intergender champion on the Tonight Show. It's supposed to be a real sporting endeavor, but we're too far from that for that to be considered any longer. But in any case, Ben started liking what she was doing. And look, Joni was interesting to be around, and she was a health fanatic, as we pointed out, just like the old man was. They could talk carbs and protein and legs and it's elbow day or whatever. And he loved that.
Elbow day. Well, let's keep it moving here. She does make her MSG debut on the 16th. So 6 days later, she's cornering Hunter. But the following week on the 17th, there's a Raw is War from Syracuse. Hunter's going to be working against Flash Funk. He gets the win with a pedigree, but this episode is the first time we hear her name. She's just been referred to as that woman and things like that. Chyna. Talk to me about how we got to the name Chyna. Chyna.
I think it might have been Shane McMahon that gave her that name. I know he named Diesel. It might have been Joni. Hell, I don't know. But it was the traditional ways going through the creative committee,
right?
Creative group. So somebody that had the chops to get that done suggested to the old man, and he liked it. And that's the thing is Vince is misread sometimes with that. It's got to be his way or the highway, always, no compromise. And that's just simply not true. So I think somebody else, I bet another case of barbecue sauce at jrsbbq.com. If I were forced to and say that it was either named by Joni or Triple H or Shane. And but the bottom line of that is that Vince liked it and he went along with it and signed off on it. And of course the spelling is WWE's famous for respelling things. Dropping this, leaving that, whatever, adding this letter. But Chyna with a Y was and guess what's funny? I've seen people on Facebook and things who've named their children Chyna, little girls, Chyna. So that's the first time I heard Chyna, it was Chyna Grove, the Doobie Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
To any social way. I knew the country, but any of that. I think I don't know who did the actual naming, but at the end of the day, it came back to the desk of the old man, and he said, "Okay, I like it."
Let's talk about WrestleMania 13. This is a big moment for her. March 23rd, Rosemont Horizon, Chicago, Illinois. Hunter's working with Goldust. They get plenty of time, 14 and a half minutes. Of course, Marlena is in Goldust corner. Hunter has Chyna with him. There's a big spot here where Helmsley's going to come from behind with a knee dive to Goldust. He crashes into Marlena. Marlena then flies into Chyna's arms. She starts ragdolling her again. It's quite the visual. They replayed it over and over and over. But it is Chyna's WrestleMania debut. How do you think she's acclimating to this WWF lifestyle at the time?
Chyna's liking being Chyna, being dominant. She hadn't sold anything yet.
Right.
That's a pretty good gig if you can get it. Good work in the pro wrestling world if you can get it. You don't have to sell, just be strong. So she was living the dream in that respect. We still didn't know if she could work or not.
Right.
But we knew she could do an angle. She could bump a referee, or she could ragdoll little Marlena. But past that, we weren't sure. Now, we had heard she'd been working out with Triple H, and then got some other people at the TVs or wherever, or ironically, I think they might have done some workouts at Kowalski's gym in his ring. So we knew she was putting time in to get better, to try to improve her game. But nobody was quite sure at what level she had attained.
Let's talk a little bit about what happens the next night on Raw. Chyna continues to get great heat. She's going to attack Bart Gunn after his match with Triple H. Chyna even body slams him to the floor, which is a pretty big spot for her. The first time we see major physicality from her and one of the guys. There's a show that's taped on the 25th, but it airs on the 31st. And, Goldust is going to face Helmsley with the women banned from ringside. Meltzer would write, it was another of their average matches, going 12 minutes and 20 seconds until Chyna interfered for the DQ. In the pull apart, Helmsley threw down Pat Patterson. Patterson, 57, who was one of the greatest workers of his era, responded with a comeback flurry that was actually better than what Flair was doing about the same time. Chyna ended up attacking Patterson from behind, and the two stomped the hell out of him until Goldust made the save. I got a magazine article about Joni Lee, billed at 5'9" and 185 pounds, with some photos from a few months back. Let's just say that while she looked like a bodybuilder in the photos, she looked nowhere near as freaky as she does in this role. A lot of people have been fascinated with the evolution of her look. Did you have a favorite version of her character as far as the way what she presented visually?
Well, I don't know how often she cycled her help. You know, I don't know. You could tell that she had distinctively different looks from time to time. I like the less thicker one and the more leaner one, because I felt like that physically it was better for her body and that she could execute things a little bit more readily. So I don't know when that would be, because she, like a lot of folks that they get enhanced, bigger is always better. That's her mindset. And I think that was kind of her mindset too. She took her out from the guys. Who was she? That's all she was around. She didn't have any females in the female locker room that she could kibitz about and talk to about weight training and how much you could squat and how much you could bench press and all those things. So, I don't know, Conrad. She was a body person, without a doubt. She taught me that carbohydrates were brain food. I never heard that before.
They're what?
Carbohydrates was brain food.
Wow.
So there you go. I didn't know that. You can tell by looking at me, I'm not big on this nutrition stuff. Nonetheless, I didn't know it. But she was really bright in that area. So I don't know. But, Dave's inferring the same thing everybody else is inferring. Joni's on the gas, and she's getting bigger, and, she got around that 200-pound mark, and she was very thick and, huge shoulders and, great body. And I can tell you, and the guys that are listening to this, that use them or have used them, it's not a matter of sticking a needle in your ass and all of a sudden in 2 or 3 days you wake up with all these muscles. You still got to go train.
Right.
So she was training her ass off like she had been for most of her life. But she was really hell-bent on getting bigger and having more size because she wanted to increase her chances of working with more men.
Let's keep it moving here. Let's mention that in late April, we see her hoisting Flash Funk in the air, and or I guess that's May, and then dropping him crotch first across the top rope and then knocking him down to the floor. We also saw a moment where she was blinded the month before, and she accidentally lifts up Hunter in a choke outside the ring, thinking he was Goldust. There's more and more physicality. Are guys warming up to the idea of working with her, or is this one of those deals where people feel like they have to because of, well, Shawn and Hunter's political clout with Vince?
Vince booked them no matter who he wanted to make happy. Hunter, Sean, whomever. But the talents did not want to cross the boss. It wasn't, well, let's don't piss off Sean. Let's don't piss off Hunter.
Right.
Most guys would say, fuck them. Well, they would. And if they were still in the business today, of course, in the same roles, not as Hunter's the, heir apparent to the throne type guy and a big official there. They had stroke, but they also had enemies, those two dudes. So a lot of the guys are defiant and didn't want to give Joni a chance because he was Hunter's girl. And Hunter was not going to become Mr. Congeniality there. I wish somebody else said, well, that was his job. You're right. I'm wrong again. It wasn't his job. You always work better to get along with your people, all people on your team. So I think guys are getting used to it because they saw here it was coming. And Vince liked her now, and he was getting more closer to letting her work with men in some sort of storyline program type issue. And they knew that they were picked to be booked in that scenario. It's not going to be the opening match. It's going to be kind of high up on the card. And their pay will be increased as a result. And at the end of the day, it's not about your character as a wrestling guy or whatever, talent. It's about the cash.
Right.
I said this before, Connie.
Cash and creative.
It's cash and creative, and it's not about the cash. People say it's not about the money. It's all about the money. And for those guys, they'll compromise their philosophies to go make a bigger payday.
Let's talk a little bit about what she wrote in her book. I want to remind everybody at this point, she's not actually wrestling the guys. She's just beating the crap out of them, usually after they've lost their match to Hunter. Eventually we know that's all going to change, but she wrote in her book, when she came to the company, she was met with, quote, resistance, anger, suspicion, ridicule, jealousy, sexual harassment, and even fraud. Boy, she's saying a lot here. You're a big part of talent relations. Is she coming to you with any of these problems in 97?
Ironically, no. What's that tell you?
Right.
Sells books, maybe. Maybe she need to get that off her chest. Maybe that's her perception. It's her book, so I don't know how to answer that, Conrad, other than fraud. I never heard that one. Sexual harassment would surprise me. I don't know what else she said she was, had issues with, but nonetheless, no. Some things you just assume are going to happen. In every company's locker room now that they have been integrated with males and females. Every day is a HR, human resources issue. Every day. Awareness, pay attention, staff it, train about it, seminars on it. It's an ongoing everyday process that has to be addressed continually, frequently. In those days, the population of the female gender in the locker room was a whole lot less bodies than there are now. Different deal. But I think that she was, some of those things some of the things happened to her or she was looked upon because she was Hunter's girl and Hunter wasn't the most popular guy. I said that. I'm not trying to bury him, just the way it was. And guys were largely jealous of him. He looked great. He was young. He had Vince's ear. Vince had confidence in Hunter's creative input more often than not. And Hunter was best buddies with the best worker on our roster at that time, and Shawn Michaels. So there's a lot of issues that float there. And guys were uncomfortable with their role. They were insecure in general. And so there's where we were on that deal. But she had some entry level issues. But I don't know how much different they'd have been with any other female in that similar role or either another talent coming in and getting a top spot. They all faced basically the same issues. Hers might have been more extreme. The sexual harassment thing obviously was unique to her being a female. but she never came to me that I can recall today saying, so-and-so sexually harassed me. Never happened in that respect. So it could have happened, but she didn't report it when we could have done something about it.
We should mention that, Hunter's in a feud with Goldust for the majority of the year here, the first half of the year, but that all switches gears when in the finals of King of the Ring on pay-per-view, we see Hunter beat Mankind to become the 1997 King of the Ring. And after he wins, Chyna smashes the scepter over Mankind's head. And it's been written since that Hunter had no interest in wearing this goofy crown and carrying the scepter around, so he would continually destroy them in his matches. But thankfully for us, Mankind and Triple H have instant chemistry, and they're going to carry that feud through In Your House Canadian Stampede and, of course, SummerSlam. And Chyna's all over these shows, but there's a big spot in that SummerSlam 97 show where she slams the door shut, the cage door shut on Mankind's head. And buddy, she wasn't pulling shit. She let it fly. And it is one of the stiffest cage door shots, maybe the stiffest ever. And this is not the steel mesh. This is that old big blue cage. That's not an advisable spot for Mankind to take. Is that something that you think Foley would have said, hey, now just really bring it. We're trying to sell it, because we know that he was not scared to take the punishment, or is she just being a little overzealous here?
Well, first of all, I don't think she probably had a lot of practice doing it.
Right.
So she didn't have that skill set down. And knowing Mick, as I know Mick, to make Joni feel more comfortable, Mick probably said, don't worry about me. Just shut the door. Make it look good. So Mick was a prisoner of his own beliefs in that respect. And because he was going to be very nice to Joni. That's Mick's heart. She's a female. He's old school, raised with a good mom and dad, and he wants his stuff to look good. So I'm sure that he encouraged her just to lay it in, baby. You don't worry about me. Make it look good. So I can't blame her for all of it. But again, how much practice did she have in that particular spot? Probably, it might have been the first time she ever did it.
Well, I'm sure it was. The August 11th Raw is War from Biloxi. We see Chyna's career make another hot turn. Hunter and Chyna are going to appear ringside for Shawn Michaels' match against Mankind. Rick Rude also makes a surprise return. This is DX. It's not yet called DX. Early on, they're calling themselves the Triple Threat. But boy, this is right up Hunter and Shawn's alley, getting to be together with their friend, their best friends, not only off the road, but on screen as well. And now Chyna's along for the ride. Somewhere in here, is this when the real life relationship with Chyna and Hunter starts to take shape?
I don't know. I thought those take shape before that.
Okay.
I don't know. I see when you were in that role of head of talent relations, you want to stay as clear of all these wrestling relationships as you can, because they're a giant pain in the ass and they don't always work. Just like in real life, marriages go south when you would think that they wouldn't.
Right.
And I never really immersed myself in the latest romance rumor. Hey, the women were getting as bold as the men. They don't mind asking a guy let's go to bed, or I want you to have sex with you. Women are doing the same thing. They're just following. Every area that a woman could follow a man's lead in pro wrestling, by and large, they did, because the men were there first. So they must have this down. And to impress the promoter, I got to be as much like the men as I can be, because that's what they're used to working with. Because when we started bringing women into the around this time into the equation, the world changed. Nobody talks about that because everybody's fanboy. Well, I like that. I like that. You're not even thinking about how it was really like backstage, or at the airport, or at the hotel, or whatever. It's a whole different community that was created when you put the females and the males together. It's not like any other facet of life where those two entities are cohabitating. It changed the game. It's changed the game now. Now look at we could just do a show of wrestling relationships, right?
Right.
We could do. Everybody's got some of them. The Bella twins had relationships. Charlotte's in a relationship. Britt Baker's Dr. Baker's in a relationship with Adam Cole. On and on and on and on. I hope they all make it. They're all good people.
Right.
But the nature of this beast doesn't lend to that. If you can get over your insecurities and your financial trials and tribulations that you have as in this business, because people making a lot of money, then they got to buy another Rolex, because we all know that 1 or 2 Rolexes just ain't enough, Conrad. God damn it. Like you got 18 watches. You get $250,000 of memorabilia, because that's your hobby. You love it, and that's what you can afford it. That's cool. It's just a different world now, man, than it was. So I thought Joni and Hunter were an item before she came in and officially got started. And I might be wrong about that. I really might be wrong about that. Maybe it accelerated once she got on the team and got put with him. That would be reasonable and believable. I just don't know. But I thought they were kind of joined at the hip a little bit once she had her experience with Kowalski, because that's where Hunter learned to work. He was a Kowalski guy too.
Let's keep it moving here. Let's talk a little bit about when we see some more personality from Chyna. One Night Stand, September 20th, the UK pay-per-view. Usually she's just almost expressionless with her arms folded, just looking intimidating in the background. But here she's actually getting in on some of the degenerate antics. Was there a direction that, hey, we need you to be, stoic? And then maybe this is a UK pay-per-view, so hey, you guys have fun.
I think it was just an evolution of her character development.
Right.
The mysterious non-expression facials, expressionless facials, were a big part of her persona. It fit her look in general well. Mysterious. Nothing like her before. Dark, cloudy, dangerous. And the UK thing was just a continued evolution, and all due respect to our wonderful Canadian fans and fans in the UK. It seemed like we were a little bit more willing to try things off Broadway, and certainly Broadway being the North American market, the most cultivated one, the most annual shows a year. And so it seemed like we were a little bit more willing to experiment with some things that might work. We felt like might work in the UK when we did big shows there. That show you're talking about there in Manchester, everybody in the world's betting that Davey Boy in his hometown was going to win the title back. If that's the show I'm thinking about, his sister was there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
She was dying of cancer, and it didn't last too much longer after that. God bless her. Really was sick. And everybody thought, man, the table is set perfectly. We're going to sell out in the biggest indoor arena in the country. And the Manchester arena was the biggest arena in the country at that time, as far as with a roof, not a football field. And the table was set seemingly, but it just didn't go down that way. That was for talents got with Vince late. Just give a good reason why they're not doing. This is not the best finish, Vince, and had their story prepared and pleaded a good case and got the verdict overturned. Because until right before the match, I just thought that it's a foregone conclusion that Davey Boy is going to win triumphantly in his hometown. They're going to try to replicate that moment where he beat Brett at SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium. That big pop, that mountainous pop, the wide scoping crowd shots and so forth. But that's not how it went down. But Joni had a increased role, Conrad, as I'm sure you're about to tell everybody on that show. She was a more vital part of the finish and the presentation than she had been on a match of this level.
Let's also talk about something else here that almost happened. The October 6th episode of Raw is War in Kansas City. We see Triple H wrestling the world champion Bret Hart. There's a moment here where Chyna's going to start interfering, and it looks like he's about to punch her. Of course, that doesn't actually happen. Was there a conversation that had to happen about, hey, we're going to try this, but you guys can't attack her. Our sponsors won't let us show that. USA isn't ready for that. I realize these days things are a little different, but back in 97, that feels like something you would have been very aware of.
Absolutely. Very aware of it, because some people that didn't know how to pull back the curtain of Oz and see who's sitting there, controlling the action, wouldn't understand that. A child sitting at home seeing a man beat up a woman ain't good TV. Figure it out. Well, I like my wrestling rough. God damn it. We got heels, and Conrad's a fucking heel, bastard. Okay. All right. So, but there's a difference in being disgusting and being a villain. And all those things are what makes a heel in today's world, and a babyface in today's world. All those roles are changing. They're like clay. You can keep molding them in a different way. At the end of the day, one stands for right and one stands for wrong. But there's a lot of ways to present that. But absolutely, it was talked about, especially, I think, Conrad, if I'm not mistaken, trying to think back on it, it was a matter of hitting her in the face. You with me?
Yes.
Hitting her in the face. Who the fuck are you texting? You texting me again? You ordering lunch? What the hell are you doing? Well, I can see when your phone lights up because it brightens your face.
Jim, it's 11:33 on a Tuesday. I own a giant mortgage company. I'm trying to work around your schedule, talk about Chyna, but people still need home loans. So I'm multitasking, baby.
You're the man. That's why you're a goddamn entrepreneurial genius.
Let's talk about the whole Chyna thing a little more in regards to a very special moment in Bret Hart's career, the Montreal Screwjob. She accompanied Shawn to the ring that night. Of course, eventually they're ordered backstage. When Hunter comes back at the end of the match, he's got Jerry Briscoe with him. Of course, Chyna's not there. I've always been interested in that moment, and it's been broken down 100 different ways, but there's no chance that, or I guess I shouldn't say there's no chance. Is this a situation where you think Chyna was told, hey, go get out of Dodge, get back to the hotel, get out of here type deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't go out for your own protection.
Right.
Don't go out to the arena so you can maintain your gimmick. When I came off the set, I don't know where Lawler went.
Right.
Vince grabbed me and said, get in my office and lock the door. That's good, huh?
Yeah. That's not what you expect to hear.
What the hell is this? The Alamo? We're outnumbered. So, but I'm sure she was told to get out as soon as she could facilitate it. And I'm sure they had somebody there to get her the hotel to where she was going to go. That's where I went. The hotel, went to my room and locked that door. Because there was that, you just didn't know. People are really, really angry.
Right.
They really were touched by this. But you didn't know how far they would go to express that anger. And the headrest left. Boom, they went right down the aisle, right out the building, immediately. No stop, go, nothing. Bags were in the car, here they go. But I'm sure she was not allowed to come back out there for her own protection. And that made all the sense in the world. And it also showed that there was no really, I'm sure in today's world, some women would be offended by that. We send the men out there, send Jerry Briscoe out there, and he's older. I could take care of myself. Okay, good for you. But it was illogical. So I think that was protect Joni. And that was a good move.
Real quick, we know that Shawn is going to get injured at the Royal Rumble in 1998. He's going to miss the better part of those shows for January, February, and March. He is there, of course, for WrestleMania 14. But along the way, since he's not working, Hunter is taking his spot and usually facing Steve Austin in the main events of house shows and dark matches after Raw and things like that. But once Stone Cold wins the match, the fans usually get to go home on a high note. Chyna taking a stunner. That's a big part of the package because it gets a huge pop. People are still not expecting to see it. And she's beating up a lot of guys, but nobody has really gotten to her yet. So for her to take a stunner, it's quite the visual, and fans loved it. Did they not?
Yeah, they loved it. And like I said earlier, thus far in her build of that character, that Amazon bigger than life character, she had done nothing but be on the offense, for lack of a better term. And she was not selling. She wasn't in a defensive posture. She wasn't retreating. Everything was strong, strong, strong. And that can be great when you're building and getting noticed. It can be very detrimental if you're trying to become a heel, because now you have no, why should I dislike you again?
Right.
You're strong. You're a good fighter. But the Austin Stunner was a new wrinkle that a lot of the audience had not seen. And I think for a while, I might be wrong about this, I think for a while, the only time you would see it are in those when Hunter and Austin would have those post-show dark matches, and she would come out. Sometimes in that world, she would get stunned. But it was a big move, man. It got, like you said, it got a massive pop. People bought it, and she sold it well. She did a nice job. She sold it better than a lot of the men did, quite frankly.
Let's keep it moving here and talk about WrestleMania 14. She's in Hunter's corner. He's going to defeat Owen Hart, killing what's left of his momentum from Montreal. Along the way, though, the gimmick is she's got to be handcuffed to Sergeant Slaughter to make sure she doesn't interfere. Of course, she's going to kick his ass, do a low blow, and of course, Hunter wins the match. But when you've got somebody who keeps interfering, in the old school days, what'd you do? Well, you put that motherfucker in a shark cage. That's exactly what they did at Unforgiven 98 in Greensboro. And this is kind of a cool spot. She bends the cage bars, Jim. We're trying to put over how strong she is. Well, that'll do it.
A little far-fetched.
You think? A little Batman-esque?
Yeah, a little. If one bowl of rice is good, then let's eat 5. I didn't. Too much. We could have been more creative.
Well, you guys were very creative on May 11th. That's when we did the whole invasion thing. We drove the Jeep to WCW's offices in Atlanta. Chyna's a part of that. I think everybody just always remembers that as being DX, but of course, Chyna's a big part of DX. So she's along for the ride. It is sort of fun to look back through some of the more famous moments from 1998. Chyna's all over these.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, she became a huge star.
Right.
She was on the top, she made more money annually in a couple of those years than some very famous, huge stars that went on to become even more famous and even more rich. I mean, we were taking very good care of her financially. And like most talents, you always believe you're not getting your fair share of the discretionary income. And I understand that. So, but she was making a ton of money. Her merchandise was doing well. Still, even though she didn't want to wrestle women, she wanted to sell her products to women. And I don't know. I just thought the bending of the bars I get the symbolism, understand that, but you lost me. It became, like you said, it became Adam West bending, a plastic bar to get Robin out of the jail cell.
Right.
It just didn't click with me personally, but I understand the logic behind it. I just thought it was the wrong mythology.
We should mention the second half of 98. She's put into a romantic relationship with Mark Henry. and he's a member of a rival stable. Of course, she's a big part of DX. Mark Henry at the time was with the Nation of Domination. And in August of 98, The Rock ordered Henry to kiss Chyna to humiliate her, and during which she fought back. Of course, he's going to start chasing her romantically. Eventually, we get the big story and the whole big sexual chocolate thing. This is the first time we see this type of storyline for Chyna.
Mhm.
Is this all Vince McMahon? It feels like he doesn't want his characters to be one dimensional. They're not just badasses. They're not just these incredible athletes. They also have these crazy and at times silly love stories, right?
Yep, they do. And I think that based on what I hear, that could be returning to WWE at some point,
Yeah.
sooner than later. They got to figure out some things to get somebody hot, people talking. There's a difference. We got people talking. We got people talking. What does that really mean? Is that a good thing? Not always. If they're talking good, it's good. If they're talking, I ain't watching that shit ever again, that ain't good. That's not good talk. But Vince always liked that sexual element, especially when we were TV 14, the Attitude Era. He had the poetic, artistic license to do what the hell he wanted. He still does, and always has. But I think that might be a return to their repertoire there, where it's so simple as getting somebody hot with consistent booking and getting those people on a roll. And you got to earmark and designate who's getting on a roll and not be talked out of it tomorrow. That don't work for me. It don't work for you, Conrad. It don't work for anybody. It's a short-term fix. And with so much information flow today due to social media, et cetera, that won't work any longer. Get somebody on a roll that I can attach to and hitch my wagon to, and let's see where it takes us. But I can't do that every other week thing. Like I said earlier, the 50-50 booking. Conrad, you beat JR with a small package, but he'll beat you up on his feet, and then he'll stomp the shit out of you. So I don't know what you beat me, but who advanced their story? Who got elevated in this cluster? Neither one of us. So the Mark Henry thing was a Vince idea. And then, of course, the writing staff would be a lot more versed in writing something salacious or a little edgy than they would a wrestling program, because they don't have the product knowledge to write about. A lot of them write about a wrestling program, how you get out of a match, and how this is going to be a 6-month deal, or we're going to start this in November. We're going to blow it off at WrestleMania. How are we going to get there? We got these tent poles here. Got a December pay-per-view. We got the Royal Rumble. How do we get from here to here? So the Mark Henry thing was, and it's controversial. Look, like you said, Conrad, right on the money. 97 was a different year.
Right.
And even though you can watch TV now, which I think is a great thing, you notice how many interracial couples are utilized on television ads now?
A lot.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Check it out. It's beautiful. The kids are beautiful. The people are smiling. They're happy. There's a big message. There's a lot of messages there in that scene. Well, in 97, even though it was being more relaxed, it still wasn't widely accepted with a black man and a white woman, or vice versa, on camera in a romantic, sexually charged environment. So it was bold in that regard. And the nice thing about it is that Mark and Chyna were both comfortable enough in the storyline that they pulled it off.
Right.
For what it was, they executed it well. So, matter of fact, Mark Henry had some foot surgery here lately. So we wish him good wishes and happy healing. Big brother, I guarantee you though, Big Brother's going to eat. My man.
Let's talk about this whole Mark Henry thing. Is this something Chyna enjoyed? She got in it to be a wrestler. Now she's doing a lot of acting. Is this as fun for her as the physical stuff, or not as much?
Oh, I think so. I think she saw herself, once she scratched her wrestling itch, she envisioned herself as a superhero.
Mm.
Like a female Schwarzenegger. type thing. Because I talked to her about that. She wanted to, get representation in Hollywood, pardon me, for these outside ventures or opportunities. She thought she could be a Wonder Woman type character in some form. And so I think she was cool with it because it showed diversity. It showed her skill sets had widened, much like Dwayne Johnson's. So what's good enough for The Rock is good enough for everybody. So Rock goes on there, he makes people laugh, he dances, he does this, he does that, sings, whatever the hell. He's an entertainer. So not only does he do the rock bottom, that I always said 3 times for whatever reason, he can sing, he can laugh, he's funny, he's got great timing, verbal timing, presence, things you can't teach. He just had it. And she felt like that was the way to go for her. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I could see her in a different place and time of sound body and mind with the right role becoming a big hit in that area of work on that big screen. I think it really was something that was a sad missed opportunity.
Let's ask about the big payoff for this Mark Henry relationship. It looks like they're a happy couple, but January 11th, 1999, Chyna introduces Henry to her friend Sammy. And the following week on Sunday Night Heat, Chyna gave Mark Henry 24 hours to come clean. And we find out what she's talking about the next day on Raw. While making out backstage with Sammy, Mark Henry is, for lack of a better word, feeling her up and memorably says, "You got a penis." Sammy was transgender, and Chyna reveals here it was all a ruse to humiliate Mark Henry. Boy, this is,
wouldn't play today, would it? You want to shit on transgender people? There's a good way to do it. Seriously.
I don't know how to make heads or tails of this.
Well, it wasn't good, Conrad. If you can't figure out if an angle's good or not, you just answered your own question.
Yeah, it ain't.
It ain't.
Yeah.
It isn't. It isn't. But you're right. It's not. So, that angle was so politically incorrect. Going along with the interracial thing, hey, good for us. Showing an interracial relationship, we're way past all these old preconceived notions. Everything's good. They love each other and they're having fun. They're enjoying life. Hooray! Hooray! And then you have to add the transsexual element to it, and that's a sad thing, because even a sad topic, because that grouping of people are one of the highest groups to get assaulted and attacked and prejudiced against and so forth. Now you read about it all the time, and it's just sad. We're more aware of the indiscretions for our society, no matter what phase of society may occupy. But we didn't do that transgender community any favors with that particular angle, which would not even be considered today.
Let's talk about the January 99 month that she had. It is weird, this whole Sammy thing, but it's not all bad news. She wins a 10 person corporate rumble, last eliminating Vince McMahon. So by winning this, she gets the last spot in the Royal Rumble. Yes, Chyna is going to be in the Royal Rumble, and she's going to come in at number 30. Is this something that was hotly debated backstage, whether or not to do it, or was it just a given by this point because her character was so popular?
It was Vince booked, was not hotly debated because Vince booked it. And we all believe that he had an idea that was intriguing enough that we all wanted to kind of go along for the ride, but it wasn't hotly contested. There might have been some whispers in this corner or that corner, but as far as it being an open debate or people having free discussion about it, no, not at all. Because Vince wanted to do it. And the last thing you want to do is die on that hill. Not smart.
The next day after the Royal Rumble, it's a Raw is War from Phoenix, and we get a hell of a swerve, bro. Chyna becomes the villain. She betrays Triple H and aligns herself with Vince McMahon and Kane. and the world champion, The Rock, winds up defeating Triple H in an I Quit match in 9 minutes and 12 seconds. This is a nice little twist, but it is sort of interesting that she's getting so popular with the fans, and the next day we're going to try to turn her. What'd you think of splitting up? I mean, it's not too long later. You guys go ahead and reunite them. Was this just an experiment and a failed experiment? And you thought, okay, that didn't work. Let's just go back to the DX thing.
I don't think it worked.
Right.
It felt like it was premature. So many things, people lose patience. Don't write it out. You know, I mentioned, we talked about Sting a week ago at Starrcade 90, right? Or whenever we did that show. Hell, I'm delirious. We've done so many shows, and it's a good show, Starrcade 90. That's next week. No, it's this week. So
yeah.
in any event.
A couple days from now.
The Sting's booking doomed him. And if he had been given more rope to untangle and get his role going, it would have been a better off as a helped get this young athletic star over. But we pulled the plug. And I think that the thing with Chyna and Hunter was really starting to click well. I felt like I wanted to see more of it, but I wasn't quite ready for the turn. So I think it was premature, Conrad, in my estimation. And to their own WWE's own sake, they put it back together. But it was an unnecessary stop in the journey.
Eventually, as we said, they do reunite. But the real big story is Chyna qualifies for the King of the Ring tournament in June of '99, which I can't believe is real. Eventually, Road Dogg pins Chyna at 13 minutes and 20 seconds with the pump handle slam. And afterwards, he reveals that he was wearing a protective cup. And of course, he did this because he knew Chyna was going to try for a low blow, so he was ready for it. Billy Gunn winds up winning the tournament and the crown. So everyone from DX here is doing really, really well. Given what we know is going to come with Chyna becoming the Intercontinental Champion, as far as you know, was it ever even discussed that instead of trying Billy Gunn, which we know wound up being a failed experiment as a singles competitor, was it ever considered to try it with Chyna, as far as you know?
Probably was discussed because she was in that sphere of bouncing ideas around, you know, here, we could do Chyna, or we put Chyna with this person, or we could do this or whatever. It wasn't just, she could be the special referee. She could be in somebody's corner. Now she'd expanded her toolbox, as we like to say. So I'm sure it was discussed. But also Vince had high hopes for Billy Gunn. Vince thought that Billy Gunn had much more potential as a singles guy because he had done that Smoking Guns thing for so long. It was time for a new coat of paint on that hot rod. And I think that, so I'm sure it was discussed, but Billy was pretty much a forerunner in those discussions. And you come to find out Billy, quite frankly, is a better tag team guy than he is a singles guy. That's no sin. Same could be said of Bobby Eaton, for example. A lot of guys. So I'm with you on it didn't work out as well for Billy. And hey, by the way, did you see his son Austin's rap?
No.
On social media about, I don't know, a week ago?
No, I missed it.
You got to check it out.
Okay.
Austin Gunn, his Twitter account has a little video of him, a song he wrote and he sung. And I'm probably making myself look really stupid and old.
Oh no, it's over at the Austin Gunn. It's called Son of a Gun Freestyle.
Yeah. And
you can find it on Twitter at the Austin Gunn. And don't forget there's 2 N's in gun, just like Billy Gunn.
Yeah. You'll be amazed. I watched it because I told the kid I would. And I didn't want to break my word to the little bastard. I didn't. You know, he's a dandy. So I watched it and I was amazed. This little son of a bitch has got talent. And so and of course his peers would be the hardest on it. They even put him over. So when his own guys put him over, you know, it's pretty damn good. I'm not an aficionado of that music, but I was really, really amazed at how good it was. And his facial expressions, his delivery, everything. He hit it, man. He hit it right on the nail. He reminded me later on of Tiger Woods' kid Charlie swinging that damn golf club. You think Charlie's gonna get laid in his lifetime as he gets older? The son of Tiger Woods. Have you seen that footage, Conrad?
No.
God damn, man.
I haven't been keeping up on my Tiger Woods.
Well, it's all over Twitter. This little kid, they played in a father-son tournament, and the kid's amazing. He had an eagle.
Well,
which means he was pretty good.
Let's talk about Chyna making history. August 10th, the Raw is War taping. She somehow winds up winning a match that makes her the number one contender to Stone Cold Steve Austin's World Championship. Of course, eventually she loses that title shot to Mankind. So now Mankind is going to get the title shot at SummerSlam. But still, Chyna versus Austin, SummerSlam 99 for the title. At least for a moment, fans thought it could have happened. Do you think Austin would have went along with a singles match with Chyna?
No, Conrad, I do not.
Okay.
Not no, hell no. And Steve was not those original trio of guys that sat there and talked to Chyna way back in the day when we begun this story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they ever had a cross word. But Steve's just old school enough that he's
not going to do that.
Not going to do that. He called me Sunday. We're talking about a lot of stuff. He's got his new TV show is looking good, and it's going to debut on USA after Raw, I believe it is, in mid-January. So it should be fun. All the fans should support Stone Cold. I still
for sure.
He did a lot for us, a lot of enjoyment, a lot of fun. And I just sat down for a long form interview with A&E on Steve that I'm hearing good things about. I'm not sure when it airs. We'll let everybody know here, but A&E's going to do a bunch of wrestling specials this year. And he's one of them. And I'm sitting down for 3 of them. So it should be good.
Let's talk about the night after SummerSlam. It's August 23rd. The show features Billy Gunn backstage asking Chyna to watch Jeff Jarrett's open challenge Intercontinental title shot contract so he can go find a pen to sign it. So let me reset the stage here. Billy Gunn has an open challenge IC title shot contract for Jeff Jarrett's belt. And he says, Chyna, watch this. I got to go find a pen to sign it. Of course, while he's gone, Chyna just signs it herself. Jarrett winds up breaking his guitar over Chyna's head later that night. But of course, later that year, Chyna becomes a fan favorite, and she's going to wind up with a bunch of victories over Billy Gunn, over the British Bulldog, even over Hardcore Holly. She's getting quite the push. And in Unforgiven, Jeff Jarrett is going to face Chyna, and Jeff Jarrett defeats her by a reverse decision after head referee Tom Pritchard, this is in the Scab referee era, shows the other referee, Harvey Whippleman, footage on the big screen of Deborah hitting the champion over the head with a guitar, which allowed Chyna to gain the pinfall. So just for a moment, we think she's going to become the Intercontinental Champion, but wouldn't you know it, it's the old Dusty finish. But of course, we all recall that's not the way the story ends. No Mercy, which is a topic for another day. We'll break this down long form some other time. There's a Good Housekeeping match, and Jeff Jarrett is supposed to drop the Intercontinental title to Chyna, and it happens. And there's a lot more to unpack about that day. We'll talk about another time. But when it came to the actual creative, let's table the contract conversation for now. Was he always going to drop the belt to Chyna, or was that a same day decision? Did you guys call an audible?
Well, because the contract issues you may be referring to, and Jarrett's contract expiring. And even though we had a contract written up and ready for him to sign, and he agreed to it, he went back on his word. Simple as that. So yeah, Chyna was going to be the Intercontinental Champion.
No matter what, I guess my point is, had that not happened, had he signed, had everything been business as usual,
she was still going to be the champion.
Okay.
Was it going to be that night? Probably to add some sizzle and a shock value to a pay-per-view that folks are, paying hard money for. But yeah, I think that my guess on that would be that she was going to get it that night, one way or the other. That was the plan, as I recall it, Conrad, is that it was scheduled for Joni to become the champion, make history, at a pay-per-view where you never know what's going to happen.
And again, I know we're going to go long form in granular detail one day about the contract, but did Jarrett have a problem working with Chyna or putting her over for the Intercontinental title?
If he did, he kept it to himself or his Tennessee buddies.
Okay.
I never heard that he had an issue with it. No, not that I'm aware of. He, as a man and old school and a, territory guy and all that, he may have had some, latent issues that he kept to himself. Heck, I don't know. But publicly, I'm not aware that he had any issues.
Let's talk a little bit about what she's doing next. She's working with Chris Jericho, and they're all feuding about the Intercontinental title. She even picks up a win over him at Survivor Series. She loses the title to him at Armageddon, but they're going to face each other on a December 28th SmackDown, which ends fairly controversially when both wrestlers seemingly pin each other. And as a result, the head of authority, Stephanie McMahon Helmsley, declares them both co-champions. What'd you make of this co-championship?
Ridiculous. Is it like a kissing your sister finish? No, it's not good. Again, we're trying to appease talents, trying to appease egos and babying people. It's fiction, guys. You're cast in a role. And this is how the storyline is going to be written.
Right.
It's not about your life. Well, my life is my business, God damn it. Okay. I'm sorry, you should have a better life. So I don't know. No, I think the Jericho thing really was, I thought when she beat Jarrett, please tell me that's as far as we're going to go. I was hoping this thing was over.
Right.
And it did soon, not too long thereafter, was over. But that began a point in Joni's career where it was not a good part of her life at that point in time, because she had to start wrestling women, and she got some bad news on her social front.
Let's take a pause here to ask, what were the guys? I mean, what were you hearing from them about working with Chyna? Meltzer would be very critical of the breakdown of her matches and things like that. I'm sure some of the guys, didn't enjoy the idea of working with a woman or didn't want to sell for her, but I'm sure other guys would complain about her lack of in-ring experience. I mean, she is working with some pretty, seasoned talent, guys like Jericho and Jarrett and whatnot. Did you have guys in your office all the time complaining about this, or by this point, were they just understanding this is part of the deal now, man?
I think they thought it's part of the deal, Conrad. I think they thought it was part of the deal, and they were booked. So you could turn down the booking and a payday, or you can keep your mouth shut and go out and make the most of it and be a professional. Nobody was breaking down the door to work with Chyna except for the money.
Right.
But at the same time, she didn't stink. She wasn't a bad hand wrestling the men. But she just, I don't know. It just didn't click. Her seeing that visual of a woman versus a man. And we had to do all this, every match, we had to do all this explaining. And the guys had to be careful, again, not to hit her in the face. Stuff like that. There are too many caveats, too many asterisks down the list of things that just deflected the flow of a match. But as far as her mechanically being sound enough to have a match with a guy, she could do that. She was sound enough fundamentally to get it done. It's still, you had that aura to get past that nobody had previously been able to do in the history of pro wrestling. But that's what we were faced with at that point in time. I knew it was a new journey, and I'm sure that Play It Forward people and look, I got 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters, brother. I ain't nothing in the world about them kids. I'm all about those kids. But, somebody's going to say, well, it was about time. She should have been given that opportunity. It's not about that. That's not the issue whatsoever here. The issue is that you're casting a fictional presentation that you have ceased allowing to be reality based. And now you change the game. And I don't think it's changed for the better. You don't see the major companies on national TV right now, the women wrestling, man.
No.
So it kind of ran its course, and it came back around to what we were talking about here. It wasn't a good long-term scenario. So again, to all the women that do that and enjoy it, more power to you. Have at it, sister. Save your money, do good. Merry Christmas, everything. But it's just not for me. And that don't mean it's wrong or bad or good. It just means it's not for me. And it's not for a lot of people. And it wasn't for the masses of people because it's no longer being done.
Well, once this Intercontinental title thing is done with Jericho, she's going to become the on-screen girlfriend for Eddie Guerrero. And as well as it worked with Mark Henry and advancing him as an individual, as sexual chocolate and all that, I thought the stuff with Eddie was even better. What'd you think?
Oh yeah. Eddie was more invested in it. Eddie went along with it better. Eddie was magic, and Eddie had come into his own as far as being a character. You know, it's obvious that Eddie Guerrero was one of the top, whatever small number you want to anoint, workers in the entire world. And he was at the top of his game is in the sports entertainment aspect. And let's look, Joni's business was all sports entertainment. It had no basis in old school pro wrestling. It was a sports entertainment presentation. And Eddie came into that world and started really doing well in that character, lie, cheat, and steal, all that good stuff. Eddie's just terrific. So, but Eddie pulled it off. And I think he and Joni liked each other. They enjoyed working together. So Eddie, as far as all the stuff that Chyna did, Eddie was her best dancing partner for me.
It really is good stuff. WrestleMania 2000, we see Chyna, Grandmaster Sexay, and Scotty 2 Hotty defeat Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and the light heavyweight champion at the time, Dean Malenko. And believe it or not, Chyna pins Guerrero with a sleeper slam after grabbing Guerrero by the crotch and hitting a press slam. Of course, they're eventually going to become fan favorites during the summer, and he's going to start calling her his mamacita. Eddie always spoke very fondly of Chyna. In interviews he did, never faltered there. Despite losing his first WrestleMania match to her, he still held her in high regards. What can you tell us about their off-air relationship? Not insinuating there was anything romantic, just they got along.
They're buddies.
Yeah.
They're like tag team partners. They got along well. I don't know how much they traveled together, because, Eddie had his longtime guys he traveled with, and I'm sure she had her group that she traveled with, Hunter up to a certain point. They had good chemistry, and the chemistry off camera led to, when the red light came on, amazing chemistry. So Eddie and Chyna are that was a good creative investment, I thought. And they had, like I said, it's all about the chemistry, and they had a load of it, quite frankly. And we're entertaining as hell, and Eddie took himself to a different place. He was more creative, more open to try things. He didn't have a problem, laughing, making people laugh. And of course, in the way that Eddie was brought into business by his late great father, it's like there's no crying in baseball. There's no laughing and rasping. But Eddie made all of us laugh with his interaction with her. She was mamacita. She was like the alpha male of that group, because she was so damn much bigger than Eddie. But I thought they did well together.
They're going to, as a couple, face Val Venus and then rookie Trish Stratus in an intergender tag team match at SummerSlam. The IC championship was on the line. Chyna wins the match, so she's IC champ, but loses the belt 2 weeks later to Guerrero in a triple threat match with Kurt Angle. Boy, I hate to be negative, but this is when title belts really started to not be worth shit. Is it not?
Yeah.
Well, we've got tag matches for intercontinental titles. What the fuck is that?
They became a prop, Conrad. Yeah. That's all. It became a prop instead of a prize. It became a prop. And when title belts become props and not prizes, you're eroding the fabric or the foundation of what the hell this business is built about. Pro wrestling's always been about the champions. Go back and look.
Right.
Oh, I like that Flair Steamboat thing. Had a title involved. Well, I liked Briscoe and Funk. I had a title involved. And the titles all meant something. And that's what a lot of places, companies, promotions are challenged with today, is to make their titles mean more. And one of those issues is because in some places they have too damn many titles. You gotta, I believe a company has one major singles title, their version of the world title. They have a tag title and one more if you really need it. But, two titles. If somebody said, JR, can you get by running a major company with two championships? You're damn right you can. You're damn right you can. But that's not going to probably happen anytime soon.
Let's talk about the split. November 2000, we see Chyna and Eddie Guerrero finally split. It comes out that Eddie's been in a shower with a couple of ladies. I guess that had ran its course, or maybe it was for this. She posed nude for Playboy in November 2000. What can you tell us about how that deal came together?
Well, I'm not sure who the individual or individuals inside WWE, but they made good inroads to Hugh Hefner and his company, Playboy. And that deal was always a package deal. The WWE superstar got the cover. Cover was a deal breaker. No cover, no talent. So, she'd had her surgery. She was, she had improved her look, more photogenic, picture friendly. We knew she was in great shape. She had breast augmentation. She called her breast giant fun bags. I read in her book where she'd say that's too sometimes, especially when women would hire women, and she'd tease me about hiring the women. And she'd say, do they all have to have giant fun bags, JR? I said, that's what Vince likes. That's what I like. So yeah, she was, this is an era where she was gotten so much, that magazine, Conrad, was very successful. She did real well. The company did real well with it. But I don't know. I think she was just getting into that era where she was going to become start wrestling women again.
Right.
And that all coincided with her social life kind of going south on her. And that was the beginning of the end.
Well, we got a lot of feedback about the decision to pose for Playboy. She's obviously expressed to you some insecurities over the years, and you talked a lot about how getting her jaw restructured was a big deal for her. And obviously we saw she, had breast augmentation and a lot of other stuff. Was this like her sort of, I don't know. Take us into the mind of Joni. She was in your office a lot. You've made mention of that over the years, that she would be very emotional. Was Playboy this like, oh, I made it thing? Is it some sort of affirmation?
I think a little bit. I think it was kind of a lifeline because of the public perception of Playboy in that era, especially who was on the cover. The covers were kept for very important people, newsmakers, magazine sellers more than anything. So she was got that lifeline. I think it validated her that she went from being the ugly duckling to being on the cover of Playboy. And without saying, if you told me, Conrad, that, hey, JR, I'm going to introduce you to this woman, I think you really like her. And by the way, she was on the cover of Playboy in December of whatever, right? I wouldn't hesitate. I'm a pig.
Right.
Hell yeah, I want to meet her. Now she said she was a model for a Tractor World magazine, and she's a photo girl for pinup girl for farmersonly.com, I might not be as excited. I'd still look. But the point is, being on the cover of Playboy brought with it natural credibility.
Right.
It symbolized beauty. You didn't see too many ugly women, if any, ever on the cover of Playboy. And it all started with Marilyn Monroe. So I think that validated Joni to a large degree. All those surgeries, all the work she had done, the painful jaw realignment, had to break her jaw. So it's just she I think she felt validation to some degree. And again, that ugly duckling had a metamorphosis, and she was now on the cover of Playboy magazine.
Well, it is a big deal. She's, especially in that era, Playboy was a big deal. As a brand, it's not as big, but as circulation, I mean, just magazines aren't as big now as they were back then, but it was a big deal for her to have that. I mean, especially on the success that you guys had with all the other ladies. And I want to mention that this Playboy thing turns into a storyline. There is a real life legal feud between WWE and the Parent Teacher Council, and they create the right to censor gimmick as a result of that. So shortly after she appears in Playboy, she starts feuding with Ivory, and that storyline culminates at the Royal Rumble in 2001. And it looks like in that match, she appears to re-injure her neck while performing a handspring back elbow. But in order to further convince the audience she was injured, Jerry Lawler leaves the commentator's booth to go enter the ring and check on her. And that's something we hadn't seen her do, or him do, since the whole thing with Owen the prior year or 2 years prior. Was this all just storyline and a way to get her off TV, or what do you remember about that angle?
Man, I don't remember, Conrad, what the exact reason was. You're trying to figure out, what do we do with her next?
Right.
She's beat Jericho. She's beat Eddie Guerrero. She's beat Jarrett. She's been the Intercontinental Champion. She competed in the Royal Rumble. She competed in the King of the Ring tournament. Where else do we go? Because as long as, I don't think, now Rock may have been more willing to work with her than I perceive, but I think Rock would have been along the same path that Austin was. Hey, I wish her the best. It's just not for me. And so I don't know, man. I think this is when things started really getting dicey for her. Because when you see yourself being booked, and then all of a sudden the creative doesn't have anything for you at the moment, that lends right to your insecurities and your phobias and your fears. And of course, since she was writing about, talked about Hunter, and that, I think it just broke her heart. That's not saying anything bad about Hunter or anybody else. I mean, she loved him. She was committed to him. And like a lot of relationships, it just didn't work. And she had a hard time accepting that.
Let's talk about when she comes back from the injury. She wins the women's championship from Ivory at WrestleMania X7. It's a total squash match. But she's on a big card here. And this is also the era, I feel like I should mention, where she starts to get herself in a little bit of political trouble. She's doing interviews where she's essentially burying the other women and the other female talent. And it's just that
was discussed. And it was also discussed before she worked with Ivory, what we expected.
Right.
And she did exactly what she wanted to do. And that was unfortunate. If you're going to beat somebody, and I know people can pick out illustrations of this, but if you're going to beat somebody, Conrad, beat somebody. Give them something to give them credibility so that when you do go over, you've accomplished something. One of the best ass chewings I ever got in my life was from Cowboy when I didn't put over an underneath guy. enough who was getting ready to do a job for the Junkyard Dog. And he said, if the guy wasn't any good, why would I have him on my TV show? Number one.
Right.
Secondly, if the dog beats nobody, then did we help or hurt the dog? Everybody's here for a reason. And that's why you hear my commentary. I try to, even guys that do the honors, give them something, man. Make them a little bit whole, give them some shine. And then it makes the guy that's winning even more over, if that makes sense.
Right.
But she manhandled Ivory, and I'm sure that her little clique of friends suggested, you shouldn't sell for her. You work with Jericho, you work with this guy, you work with, you shouldn't sell for her. That's silly. Anyway, but yeah, she was doing some business for herself, especially when it came to talking about Hunter and their relationship. She was looking for sympathy. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Let's mention that, Chyna has one more title defense against Lita at Judgment Day in 2001. Although she won the match, she soon vacates the women's championship. That winds up being her final WWF match. Let's talk about why. It's time to get into it, I suppose. I think our crack research team has decided that this relationship with her and Triple H actually started in late 96. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, in hindsight, Hunter got his girlfriend a job in wrestling.
Yeah.
That's sort of the story.
Pretty much.
They initially hide the relationship from their coworkers because they don't want people to think that she slept her way to the top. But eventually, as you know, they wound up living together, and eventually the Hunter Stephanie relationship on screen happens, and it turns out it's more than just storyline. She wrote, and with the exception of the storyline involving my boyfriend and the admittedly more conventionally attractive Stephanie McMahon, I think you understand where I'm coming from. I get as much of a kick out of the McMahon family shenanigans as anyone else. But my boyfriend, Paul, known as Hunter, and I have been, experimenting with the notion of giving each other a little space. And you probably know his character, Triple H, is married to the character of Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon's daughter, who is in real life, of course, Vince McMahon's actual daughter. Well, in the latest storyline, Hunter and Stephanie are feuding because she's insanely jealous. And Hunter is jealous too, because he thinks Kurt Angle has been slipping Stephanie some of the old Olympic gold on the sly. Anyway, according to the writers, I'm supposed to feel sorry for Hunter, give him a big hug, and tell him I know how it feels. Duh. There's some debate, I guess. This is just me and you talking now. When this relationship with Stephanie really started. After her death, her sister Kathy Hamilton would say Bleacher Report that while Paul was very good to Joni, the couple disagreed about the future family plans. Paul wanted children, Chyna did not. And the addictions and mental health problems also contributed to their breakup. We've touched on it before. She leaves the company November 30th, 2001. She'd been off TV for several months. There's lots of different reports coming from this and how it happened behind the scenes. Chyna says they started seeing each other before they were officially broken up. Of course, talking about Triple H and Stephanie. In a 2002 interview with the Baltimore Sun, she said that her breakup had nothing to do with her leaving the company, and she left to pursue an acting career. And I think you were quoted somewhere here saying that you guys had mutually agreed to let her contract expire so she could explore other stuff. She did a 2015 interview with Vince Russo, and she said after a meeting with Vince McMahon about the Stephanie McMahon situation, she was sent home, and later she received a fax telling her she wasn't needed anymore. Lots to unpack. What really happened with her leaving the company? We'll table the breakup for a moment. Her leaving the company, you say mutually agreed. She says Vince sent her home and sent her a fax. What really happened?
Well, we decided not to renew her contract. We wanted her to save face, Conrad. We wanted her to leave without having to die on her sword. And so consequently, I decided that it'd be a mutually agreed parting of the way. It left her with some credibility. It didn't make her seem so much as a victim, which I'm not so sure she didn't want to be. She may want to be a victim and garner the sympathy that a babyface would if he was against a big heel and insurmountable odds in overcoming them. She had a meeting with Vince, and then he stopped meeting with her. She still came to TV thinking she might get booked or might be used. And I don't know why we kept bringing her to television. I nipped that in the bud because it's a waste of money, waste of her time, wear and tear. And we made her a real good offer, I thought.
Well, I got some details on that. Let's talk about it. After she passes away, her sister Kathy said that Chyna was offered a new contract for $400,000 a year. Of course, that was her downside guarantee. She would have made more with merch and pay-per-view, et cetera, et cetera. But supposedly she just flat refused to sign a deal for less than $1 million. And you've told me that story before here on the show, but does that line up with it being the end of her run? This wasn't a year or two prior. This is right here, post breakup. I'm worth $1 million. You offer her 400. We agree to disagree. She goes her own way.
Yeah. And people got to understand this thing. The 400K was probably more than she was making when she was earning $1 million. Can you understand that logic?
Yes.
And so she gets an increase in her downside. So if she gets hurt, she's not booked, whatever, she's going to make about $8,000 a week, somewhere thereabouts. $8,000 a week. And if she gets back rolling and gets creative rolling again, and she invests herself as she did before in her character, then the chance for her making more money and being higher up in the card is obviously there. Her deal to me was, I'm as valuable as Stone Cold is to WWE. Chyna is as valuable to WWE as Stone Cold Steve Austin is. And so, therefore, she knew there was a handful of guys making $1 million downside. And he was one of them. That was the magic number. At that time, that was the number that you strive to attain if you're a talent, because that was the top of the pay grade. It's $19,000 and change a week. And a lot of guys just took it as they earned it, and they made, Jericho and I were talking about the other day, and he had some $2 or $3 million years on about a $350,000 downside. So it's there to make. That's the incentive of it. That's why it worked so well.
Right.
You're incentivized. But her deal was, no, I don't want a $400,000 guarantee. I want $1 million guarantee, because she wanted exactly what Austin, Undertaker, some of those cats were making. And she wasn't ever going to be cast in their light. She was going to be used in their way. It would not have been a good investment for us to make. Now, if Vince had said to me, hey, look, she's had her heart broken, she's had some bad luck here, blah, 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 give it to her. Well, I would have given it to her.
Right.
If that's what he wants. It's his money, but that's not what he wanted. Give her a raise, make it, and put it in the same level of a lot of these other guys making 7 figures, earning 7 figures, not being guaranteed it. And let's call it a day. But quite frankly, I'm not crazy about keeping her, which is what I wanted to hear.
Right.
It was an ongoing saga. And I said, Joni, why do you want to be here? Every time you come to work, you see Hunter or Stephanie or together. It's going to eat you alive. You can't just be the money. You're going to be miserable.
Right.
And I believe that, Conrad. I really believe that. It was any money off of me or out of my pocket. No, just trying to be honest with her.
Right.
And so that's kind of where that was. And then I don't recall legal may have sent her a fax to follow through on something. I never fired anybody by fax. That's somebody else.
What about FedEx? That was Eric's move.
Nope. Phone call. or in person.
Right.
But nonetheless, that's how that ended up going down. So, but the 400K was not a bad offer, considering she was making less and earning 7 figures plus, with all the merch, the pay-per-view payoffs, the live events, all the stuff that she was doing. But again, after all these talks with her every week, in person and on the phone, I knew that she had her eye on acting. She wanted to be that Schwarzenegger. She even used him as an example. I could be the female Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then I said, that's what you should go for.
Right.
Because you're only going to be young one time, Joni. And they ain't going to be no casting no 50-year-old female Schwarzeneggers. You know, you're young, get the youth. You still got your look. You freshen your whole package up, and you still look wonderful. So there's where I'd get started, because it's not an automatic deal. It's not a layup. So I was trying to give her enough positive reinforcement to ease out of the wrestling business, at least with us, and go do something else. And because I didn't want to, personally, selfishly, didn't want to deal with the heartache of managing a talent who's going to walk around gloom and doom. And to be honest with you, you start wondering about the stability of someone mentally. How are they going to react going forward? Cumulatively, are these issues going to become unmanageable? And then you have to start the whole thing I've always done. When I was managing talent, you managed with the worst case scenario in mind.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, she could go off. She could assault somebody. She could get so depressed because she got depressed a lot, and she could commit. She could end her life. There's a lot of things that could happen. You got to think about them. You don't hope for it to happen, but you got to think about the reality of the situation. So I was glad that she moved on, and not only because it made my life easier. I thought if she got to become that female Schwarzenegger, she could show everybody that the ugly duckling became a major Hollywood star.
Talk to me a little bit about the whole breakup thing. There's been a narrative out there that Hunter and Stephanie are seeing each other while Hunter still technically lives, or at least shares space with Chyna. And she goes through his bag and finds a note from Stephanie. Did you hear that story?
Yeah, I've heard that story.
Did she bring it to you?
Don't know that I can't confirm it, Connie, nor deny it, but I've heard the same story on multiple occasions. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think that story to be true, as I sat here and talk to you today.
When does she come to you? I mean, you've told us before that she would come to you a lot and sort of confide in you and pour her heart out, and she's very emotional and upset. Mm-hmm. I mean, is she just inconsolable, or are you able to have real conversations with her about this split when it's still fresh?
Oh, yeah, we talked, I could count on talking to her for at least a couple of hours at TV. 2 hours. I have people waiting to talk to me at payroll issues or other issues, and they have to wait. And sometimes it was just waiting for her to regain her composure because she's crying unconsolably. She cried like Fred Gwynn of the Munsters, a deep voice, and it's just sad. I felt for her. I almost want to cry myself. She really was heartbroken.
Right.
I think that's the first time in wrestling that I ever saw a talent over a social thing, a death, yeah, but socially be so distraught that it affected me. That's how much it meant to her. She was just destroyed when she found out that Hunter was, quote unquote, cheating on her. Now, look, was he cheating? Hell, I don't know. If they were seeing each other and they still had their thing going on, then yeah, if that's what happened. But I don't know that the relationship hadn't already imploded. I don't know. But bottom line is she was heartbroken, inconsolable. And so now she's trying to figure out what she's going to do. And she's got to have that $1 million or she's going to be gone. Well, I can't do the $1 million. So, and I didn't try to resurrect it. I didn't say, okay, well, but I will do 750.
You just let it go.
It was not here's the thing. I've said this to you before, privately and on the show. My style of management is not for everybody. Right. I get that. My little diatribe I made a couple of weeks ago about, the guys congregating like quail, 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 is probably a little coarse. I could do a better job of that in my lifetime. But there just wasn't any way to make this right. So I reverted back to my old philosophy. If you can't solve somebody's problem, Conrad, what do? You eliminate it. And that's exactly what we did. We gave her the opportunity to stay. She still would have been a great earner. She still could continue her career. She'd had to restore her faith in wrestling women. I don't think that she could have done that. So this was so many bridges to cross to get back to a steady ground. I didn't think it was feasible, especially when the love of her life she's going to see every day with another woman. Figure that out.
Right.
I can't do it. Dr. Phil would have a hard time figuring this one out. He'd probably say the same thing as, let's cut bait. Let's move on.
Did Vince have a powwow with you about this and say, "Goddamn, pal, got to look out for our business here. Got to look out for my kids here." Whatever.
No, the kids never came into it.
Okay.
The business. I'm not sure we can manage her anymore.
He said that to you, or you said that to her or to him?
To Chyna.
Okay.
Vince was not sure we, the WWE, could manage her in a successful way any longer based on what has transpired. And I don't disagree with that. And again, it's going to sound like, well, JR wanted her out the door so he would have less issues to deal with. It was a situation that was built for failure. No one can convince me that she would eventually be okay. If you had sat in those meetings with she and I, fly on the wall thing, you'd see exactly what I'm talking about. Her heart was broken. And I don't know how you mend a broken heart. I really don't. So I think we made the right call. I tried to end it with no hard feelings. And look, if we saw going forward down the road that we could have brought her back on even keel, on level footing because of the Hunter Stephanie thing, I'm sure if it could draw money, Vince would bring her back, no doubt. But I never thought that she'd get to a place in her life where she'd be comfortable walking the halls, thinking people are staring at her. Get back to that same scenario. What did they do when she was 13 or 16? They stared at her. They belittled her. She created this monster around herself that we're going to be recreated in the afterlife of this post WWE run. And if she came back, she's going to know that she's going to think everybody's looking at her, and that you're being stared at, and she's been, that had happened to her whole life for the wrong reasons. So I just never thought that we could put all the pieces back together and make it whole. And how it worked out, we didn't have to go into negotiation. We didn't have to fire her. She didn't have to quit. Contract ended. She got all of her money coming to her. She still got royalties after that. Her estate may still be getting royalties. Wouldn't be surprised. So that's kind of where we had to leave it on that WWE Joni Laurer end.
I'm curious about, and I know you're going to feel like I'm beating up on you a little bit. These days, we see the WWE have folks on the roster, folks on the payroll who aren't actively working on camera. For instance, Paige comes to mind. I think Paige is still under contract with the company, still probably has a very healthy income, but she's not in the ring every week. She's not an on-screen character every week. But the company's keeping her around, I would assume, because they know she's talented and then they appreciate her contributions, and they hope to find
they want her to go to AEW,
and they hope to find a place for her in the future. Here it feels like that's not the case. We're content to just let her go.
different climate, Conrad. Compare it to your bank mortgages.
Yeah.
It's a different time. The TV contracts was great. Those huge rights fee monies that came pouring in for WWE from Fox and NBC Universal. It wasn't that way then. It wasn't that way. And, so the financial scenario was a different setup. I know what you're saying. Well, they do it now. Why couldn't they have done it then? That's basically it.
Well, the company had plenty of cash. It's not like we're penny pinching and they're taking the water coolers out. This is somebody who we acknowledge was a major player for us, but now they've had some personal tragedy.
So are you saying that you believe that she could have been resurrected and that her broken heart was going to heal and everything would be okay over time?
You're goddamn right. I mean, Jan wasn't your first love. And guess what?
Chance in hell, Conrad. I've been in those meetings. She was miserable
in that moment. She had other relationships after that.
Well, we just disagree on that, which is fine.
Yeah. All I'm saying is everybody, when a breakup, not everybody, a lot of people, when a long-term relationship breaks up, they just fucking fall off the deep end. I get it. One of the parties is usually okay. The other one is broken and fractured and feels like my life is over. And then guess what? 6 months from now, a year from now, it's a whole new ball game. And I feel like there would have been an opportunity for her to do that, but instead we cut her loose. And before we know it, she's doing porn.
Okay. She wanted to be cut loose, or she wouldn't have demanded a number she knew she couldn't get. She asked for something she knew could not be delivered upon. Take it or leave it. Number one. Number two, this female Schwarzenegger thing was big to her. She was looking good. Her face was done. She had the big boobs. She's been on the cover of Playboy, all the things that were measured at that point in time. And that seemed to me to be her biggest interest. As I said to you earlier, if she had gone away, let some grass grow under her feet, this matter. And, we saw the progress, her maturity progress, her being happy with herself, finding another man that she could love as much as she loved Hunter and who loved her back. Maybe that would have helped in time. But, and Vince, I'm sure Vince would have hired her back if that had been the case. That wasn't what she wanted. So I don't think we made a mistake in how we handled that. But it sounds like we did. In your estimation, we probably did.
No, I do think you did. And I think and again, it's not like you get a fucking do-over on this. Everybody's doing their best. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just trying to explain, if the boss's daughter has now taken my boyfriend and I've got to take your word that you're going to be fair with my income, I might be uncomfortable about that. I know you have been in the past, but that's when circumstances were different. If she wants me out of here and wants me to be booked a certain way or presented a certain way, it's going to affect my income, no doubt. And so if there's no guarantees as to what that income is going to be, I don't want to be stuck in a miserable situation making less money than ever. And it's all because this lady who stole my boyfriend doesn't like me. That feels like a rational response and request, but I understand you saying you think it was a hard line, yes or no. And that was probably the wrong way to handle it. No argument there. But I just don't see why, hey, go, as you used to say, go learn a new hold. We'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, if she's a major player for you, she'll be a major player for you in 7 months. And this 6 months is just an investment. If she had torn an ACL, she would have had that, but she didn't. Stephanie tore her heart. And so now she's out of here.
Yeah. That's why you make judgment decisions, and, I don't have anything to add. I thought we we did our due diligence. I met and met and met. I conversed. I shared ideas with her. I shared thoughts with her. At the end of the day, I could see that we were not going to come to an agreement.
Right.
I could not fulfill her demand for $1 million a year. And you opened my eyes on a couple of things, but you're not going to open my eyes on the fact that, well, why don't you just give her the $1 million? Are you shitting me?
Right.
No. A lot of the guys there who are in the Hall of Fame now and are very financially secure never made a $1 million downside. They may now because the pay structure is different, and the company's got more cash on hand. But nonetheless, I don't think that. I think we made the right call on that deal. But I do believe Vince would have hired her back if wounds would have healed over time. And look, if she goes off and becomes this female Arnold Schwarzenegger, then what is she worth to us?
Right.
More. So I thought we had some things put into place, but then she got making some bad decisions.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
With the booze and alcohol. So, the booze and the drugs. And like a lot of wrestlers, for whatever reason, they are prone to, if they're going to do pills, they do downers. I know, I did them. Ambien, Xanax, if you can find the Oxycontins and all that shit, all downers. There's no speed type thing. There is, but it's not utilized as much as the downers. And so when you're insecure and you're easily depressed and you use booze and downers as your part of your diet on that given day, you're aiming for a disaster. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened to her.
Let's talk about what she does after WWE. She does a second nude pictorial in Playboy. She also films a adult documentary, Joni Laurer Nude, Wrestling Superstar to Warrior Princess. That's also for Playboy. Sable, by the way, did Playboy after WWE as well. Both had the same result, not nearly as big as when WWF was co-promoting it. In 2002, she makes some appearances for New Japan, first as a referee, and then she does matches in September and October. In 2003, it's reported that she's one of many names to be in the running to be the new female Terminator in Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Of course, she doesn't wind up getting the role. It goes to Kristanna Loken. That's really the only notable role that she ever had. But in an alternate universe, Chyna would have been a pretty badass Terminator, wouldn't she?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. One of the things you have to accept in Hollywood is failure. The audition process, over and over, and you go back and you go back and you try another one, you do another one. That's what she was always going to have trouble accepting failure, for lack of a better term. And she'd have, and she didn't want to go through hardship again. She needed to be a star. She needed to be back out there. She picked a very unique way of doing so. But if she had stayed with the course and kept auditioning and interviewing and and networking out in LA, get a good agent, she might have found success. But she didn't stay on that path long enough.
Right. Well, we know what's going to happen in 2003. She starts a pretty tumultuous relationship with great friend of the show, Sean Waltman. Unfortunately, in 2004, a sex tape comes out. This is the company, Red Light District, who had put out the Paris Hilton tape. And they thought, well, hey, this will be a big hit. And I guess it was. They sold more than 100,000 copies. I think both Sean and Joni participated in the profits. Eventually, she decides to try her hand at an actual adult video, Another Night in China in 2009. She does another one in 2011 called Backdoor to China. She does an Avengers thing in 2012 and a She-Hulk thing in 2013. There's lots of adult films now to her credit. She made some appearances on some TV shows as well, like VH1, the Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. I think that was in 2008. She was hospitalized a few times for accidental overdoses and whatnot. It is just one bad piece of business after another. as they say in the wrestling business. Unfortunately, this story doesn't have a huge happy ending, but it does feel like there was one last chance in wrestling. In 2011, I guess it was May, she made her TNA debut, and she was introduced by Mick Foley, and he introduced her as Kurt Angle's business associate, and nothing ever really came of that. But there was at least
I forgot about that.
a time where it felt like, hey, maybe she'll be back. In early 2012 until mid 2015, she actually taught English in Japan, which is kind of cool. While she was over there, she converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But the following year, in April of 2016, unfortunately, she was found dead in her home in Redondo Beach, California. She's only 46 years old. And the toxicology report would show there was a whole host of different medications involved. Her mother told investigators her daughter was an alcoholic who drank cheap wine and was addicted to prescription medication. And, man, a tough end. This is a tragic story in that it started with a rough upbringing and it ended horribly, but boy, along the way, she sure did become quite the star and make a lot of people happy, bring a lot of smiles to a lot of faces, inspire a lot of young girls, I'm sure, to embrace physical fitness and bodybuilding and building their muscles, and empowered young women that, hey, you can do anything the guys can do. There's a lot of great stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. You just have to look for it a little bit, Conrad.
You do.
And unpackage the negative.
Yes.
If you're willing to unpackage the negative to expose the positive, which is not a bad outlook on life anyway, you'll see that she had some really wonderful moments. When Joni was happy, it was a glow. You could tell she was legitimately, realistically happy. And those made me really happy because I spent so many hours with her talking about the negative stuff. And, I can't address why somebody broke your heart, Joni. I don't know, honey. I don't have a clue. I don't know about your relationship. I'm the last guy that should even think about giving you advice on marriages.
Right.
I've had 3 of them. You think I know about this shit? No, the last one I got right. But it wasn't an automatic deal. But she really she wanted stability. She wanted love. She wanted support. She wanted a hug when she needed it. And she just wanted some validation that she was not the ugly duckling, that she became a beautiful woman, but she always tried to keep proving that. Every day she tried to prove it. And at some point in time, you got to say, look, Joni, you're a beautiful woman now. You'll say now, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And you're smart. She was very, very intelligent.
Of course, you don't get to learn all these languages being a dummy.
Right. Very smart. So, yeah, it's one of the sadder talents at the end of the day that I ever worked with, managed, whatever. She was, she and Jan got along well. They talk about fashion.
Right.
Or exercise or dieting. And so she had a lot of positive traits. I just think the way she was raised, her experiences as a very impressionable young person, gave her some burned in her brain some of her feelings that she could never free herself from. That's why I said early on, I don't know if she ever found true long-term happiness with anybody or anything, because sometimes you get pounded on so much, you just simply believe happiness is just simply not meant for me. I'm never going to find it. And that's just the way that it is.
What a terrible, I hope nobody listening to this thinks that, because it's not true. And I hope that everybody can fight through whatever challenges life comes your way, and this doesn't become your reality. I do want to mention that while they found her on April 20th, the last time anybody heard from her was April 17th. And it was an Instagram post. It was a smiling selfie from her bedroom, or what looks like her bedroom. And she wrote, "Happy Sunday, my lovelies. I hope you all enjoy your day with your family. Be happy, love each other, and live in peace." And those are nice words, from Chyna.
She had clarity that day, Conrad.
She did.
She had clarity that day. She woke up with a different outlook for that moment in time. And when she did that, she was a breath of fresh air. But when she was so big physically and in stature, symbolically, that when she was having a bad day, she could not hide it. And then people would either come to her aid, they'd try to take advantage of her, whatever the case may be, but they knew that she was vulnerable at that point in time. And more often than not, she was vulnerable. And again, I just look back and she handled it so well because that's what she knew.
Right.
This is how she was raised. This is how she lived her life, with controversy and uniqueness. She was a legitimate Renaissance woman, but she just was, at the end of the day, just a very sweet person at heart who never found the love of her life that she could stick with over the long haul and find that career success, that she was looking for. I think the fact that she was teaching kids English in Japan was a good indication of what kind of human being that she was. Living in a different environment, different food, different everything.
Culture, everything. Children. Yeah. Let's also mention, she's there for a lot of the major moments in wrestling. Not only did she compete in the Royal Rumble, not only did she win the Intercontinental title, but she's there for the screw job. She's there for all the great DX moments. She's there at WrestleMania 17, on and on. What do you think her lasting legacy will be?
Trailblazer. She did things on a global level that no other female had ever done. And if these ladies that are, no matter where they work, what company they work in, and the money that they're earning, they can look over their shoulder back at the Legend of Chyna and say, thanks.
Right.
She broke the ground that they're now walking on.
I want to mention too, there is some controversy about the Hall of Fame. She's not in the Hall of Fame. And when, someone in the WWE was asked about whether or not she should be in the Hall of Fame, the question was brought up, well, what do you say to your kids when someone Googles her?
I think I saw that.
I mean, she is in the Hall of Fame now as a member of DX, but when that statement was made, she was not in the Hall of Fame. Do you think, and I know we don't talk about this a lot, but it's not the WWE's deal to put multiple or a whole bunch of deceased professional wrestlers in the Hall of Fame.
That's the deal.
At the same time, because it paints a picture that's negative about the industry and their company in particular.
Right.
Do you think in time she'll get a solo induction?
I think she deserves it. I hope so. If I had a vote, I'd say yes. It's the same basic concept of why Chris Benoit will never be in the Hall of Fame. Because the last 48 hours of his life were tragic, horrific.
Well, that's a little unfair. And I know you're just making a comparison, but one guy murdered his family. The other person had an accidental overdose.
No, I'm talking about the porn.
Well, but my goodness.
I'm not saying Conrad. She should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Last year. Whenever. Look at the list of Hall of Famers and what they've accomplished. A lot of them are really good. Some of them not so much. Some of them were political inductees. She certainly should be in the Hall of Fame by herself, without question. If nothing else, for being the trailblazer for women who have preceded her, or she has preceded, I should say. So I'm with you on that deal, man. All I'm saying is that if you can't go back and Google somebody's name and they had some negative verbiage on their Wikipedia page. how did she do in the wrestling business?
Right.
You know, people have made the same argument in theory now about Pete Rose.
Right.
He gambled on baseball. He may be one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Whether you like him or you don't, it's hard to denigrate hit total. He allegedly bet on baseball. He said he bet on baseball, but he never bet against his team to win. Whatever.
Your point is he's not in the Hall of Fame because of off the field activities.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she is not in the Hall of Fame because either political issues involving Hunter and her back in the past, or her pornographic career, which was not just a couple of days. You know, she made several movies.
Yes, she did.
So, but yeah, I don't care about that. It's irrelevant to me. I think she's a Hall of Famer. She should be in the Hall of Fame. And, you know, I saw where your father-in-law, the Nate, said that the WWE was going to build a physical Hall of Fame in Orlando. So if so, that's good news. And if so, she should be in it. So that's just me. I had a lot of long days with her, but all the time I still maintained respect and empathy for what she had gone through in her life. And just thank God that I didn't have to endure what she did to get to my status, wherever that may be, in life. My lot in life, I accomplished through without the shit that she had to go through. It's sad. So, yeah, Hall of Fame's no brainer. That's a no brainer to me.
Let's do a couple of questions here. Did anyone in the WWE ever reach out to her and offer her the help she needed? Obviously, the point is we've heard a lot about WWE sponsoring folks going to rehab. Did Chyna ever get that opportunity, to the best of your knowledge?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. No doubt. But you can lead a horse to water, can't make her drink. And that's denial's a big enemy of drug and alcohol abuse. Well, I got this. I got this. I'm good. I've got this. And I don't think that she was ever interested in that kind of help.
Fisher Kid says the rumor is Jericho and Chyna didn't get along, and Jericho felt that him being booked with her was meant to bury him. It's also been written that he worked stiff with her and got yelled at by Vince. Do you recall there being any issues there?
I don't recall specifically. Jericho works stiff with a lot of people, still does. Watch every Wednesday night, you'll see. I don't remember any being a significant issue, Conrad. You know, I'm sure that Chris, being trained in the dungeon there in Calgary and, you know, son of a former NHL goon, you know, he might not have thought that was becoming of his pro wrestling career. I could see that. A lot of guys had that same feeling, but I never heard it made public from Chrissy. But it never affected his work. He still went ahead with his booking. So if it had been a big deal that he just absolutely could not tolerate, the matches would not have occurred.
Here's an interesting question here from Gabriella. There's been so much hearsay of Chyna's mental health. Were there instances before the affair that suggested she was unstable? Or does JR think most of this stemmed from a broken heart?
No, I think she had latent issues when we got her. I think she was damaged goods when we hired her, that we discovered later on. The more you learn about somebody, you learn about their upbringing, their background, their childhood experiences, what has molded them to be the person that they are. It's very eye-opening. So I think she had some issues when we got her. And I think that then the relationship thing, you know, you did a good job of talking about her early life.
Yeah.
We never talked about anybody in her early life, Conrad, that she was smitten to. Boyfriend, high school, college, her male experience in college, she got raped by 2 guys. She'd never had that experience. It didn't seem like, at least it wasn't reported. So I think that when she finally got in that world and it blew up on her, she didn't know how to respond. It was unprecedented in her life to be loved or be perceived to be loved like she was in her relationship with Hunter. But I think she didn't know how to handle that because it never crossed her path. That had not been her radar to any degree. flings here and there, but she thought they were getting married. Their big issue was he wanted children and she didn't at that time.
Right.
So that was pretty damn serious when you're talking about kids. So I feel, I don't think that she had any, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word, but I knew we found out as we went along, there were issues there that we didn't know about and could not have known about. Nowadays, you have the abilities for more research and more background checks and all those things. I get that, but we weren't that advanced at that point in time. And we were going by the eyeball test, and she certainly passed that.
Couple more and then we'll wrap things up. Brad wants to know, overall, do you think her personal relationship with Triple H ultimately hurt or helped her? It feels like obviously it helped in the beginning, but hurt her towards the end. That's an interesting question because it is, I mean, she did seek out wrestling on her own. She did go to Killer Kowalski's school on her own. Had they never become an item, maybe this all could have wound up a lot different, huh?
Could have, yeah. We'll never know. Well, her goal was to get in wrestling, and Hunter helped facilitate that via the Kowalski school, and then getting her in front of Vince. And it also was a good move for him booking wise because it gave him a valet that had a very unique appearance and made him and her together very unique. And he was growing into his role, trying to become that $1 million a year guy as well. So I would say he helped her, but the evolution of a relationship can't be predicted. So consequently, who knew that they were going to break up? The odds are they were, because it's a wrestling relationship. And even though some of them are very successful, there's been a lot of them that haven't been. A lot of them. And when you go down, you take a hell of a bump because it affects your career. Affects, now it's on the internet, the old proverbial dirt sheets. Everybody knows everything. Makes TMZ even. So I think that Hunter helped her a lot, but how do you predict the natural progression of life where some relationships succeed, Conrad, and some don't?
Right.
Like you alluded to earlier, Jan was not my first love.
Right.
She was my greatest love.
Right.
And I'm proud to be able to say that. But you just don't know how life's going to, the hand you're going to get. She wasn't prepared for the hand that she was dealt when she allegedly found that note in his briefcase.
Let's do one more and then we'll get out of here. Bill wants to know, it's a tough question, but I think it's fair. Does JR feel like Chyna reached her ceiling in the WWF? Of course, I think the question there is, we saw what happened several years later, I guess, 5 years ago now. Women were main eventing pay-per-views. Women were main eventing WrestleMania. We haven't yet seen a woman to be the WWE champion. There's been a woman's WWE champion, but a woman has yet to hold the big belt there, but we did see Tessa Blanchard do it in Impact. Do you think she reached her full potential, or was there still more to do?
I think in the creative world, there's always still more to do that can be done simply by hiding someone's weaknesses and embellishing their strengths. So I think there was more for her to do, but I think the biggest part of the story, the debut, the intergender stuff, was that the horse left the barn on that one. Already been done. Been there, done that. So then it would become a matter of getting her involved in a storyline that would obviously have some sexual overtones, because man and woman type deal, or maybe she had a lesbian affair type deal. I don't know. I've always believed there's more to do if you're smart in your writing, and the talent have an opportunity to contribute to their own creative. That's when you get outside the box and you can get some good stuff rolling to get somebody restarted. But I think the best part of her career had happened when she left. I think I don't. And it sounds like I'm not a fan. I was, but she got to the top of the mountain fast.
Yes, she did.
And for anybody to think that she should be the WWE champion, to me, is laughable. To me, that wouldn't even been an option.
Especially not in that era. I mean, I don't know that we're there yet in WWE yet, but we saw Impact do it, and it's interesting to think, had she been able to continue to pursue wrestling, what she might be doing today. I mean, with the advent of AEW, and obviously Impact is on the move, and there's whole women's promotions, even over in Japan. And she could have had a second act here, but she left us way too soon. Mm-hmm. And I hope we've done her service today, because she did a lot of really, really great stuff. And in the end, I think she probably got a bit of a raw deal. I think everyone can agree on that. And it wound up leading to tragic circumstances, but boy, was she a big star. And
Conrad, it's a great lesson for us, you, me, everybody listening or watching, that we're all going to get these hands.
Yeah.
They're going to take different shapes and forms. They're going to smell different. They're going to look different. We're all going to get some tough ass hands to deal with. The bottom line, as old Stone Cold would say, is how do you respond? How do you react? And that was her issue. She wasn't equipped to react as one would ideally desire. Her heart had been broken time and time again, struggles, cat calls, smart ass remarks, you look like a man, blah, 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 all these things. She had a life before the jaw alignment and a life after the jaw alignment. She got softer looking. She got what she was seeking. But she was not prepared for the hands that she was dealt, and the final straw was losing what she perceived at that time as the love of her life, the love she never thought she might ever accomplish or find, and that's sad. That's really sad. Recovering from a broken heart is hard. Trust me, it really is. And unfortunately, God bless her, she just didn't have the tools to be equipped to get over it. And hiding her hate, her sorrow, her heartbreak in drugs and alcohol is never the answer, but she could not escape that trap.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you taking time to listen today. And I appreciate you, Jim, being so candid and open and honest. And I enjoyed, breaking down the career of Chyna, the life of Joni. And don't forget, we're not done with our bonus conversations. We've got another one coming to you this week, covering maybe the best year a wrestler ever had as far as in-ring performances. Shawn Michaels in 1997 and 1998, one of my absolute favorite stories to cover. And we're going to be doing it this week, just in time for Christmas. We hope you guys are having a great holiday season. Don't forget, you're still getting your regularly scheduled program on Thursday. Grill and JR will be back with Starrcade 1990. And be sure to ask us a question about our Shawn Michaels story if you'd like. It's at JR Grilling. He is at JR's BBQ. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. We'll see you soon right here on Grillin' JR with the voice.
Holidays. Oh, sorry. Fuck that up, Conrad.
You know what? It's Christmas. God bless us, everyone, Jim.
You Tiny Tim little bastard, you.
Tiny Tim's been eating pretty good over here. We love you, Jim. See you guys soon right here on Grillin' JR.
See you, everybody.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.